A girl wearing a white doctor's coat is falling from a height into water, accompanied by the sound of breaking glass and cursing, telling her to die. That girl's name is Lean Ban-ha, a forensic expert who always works with corpses. She originally wanted to prove the innocence of their deceased relatives. That's why she performed autopsies. She never expected this would cause trouble. Unexpectedly, this led to conflict. While she wasn't paying attention, the victim's family rushed in and pushed her outside. Ban-ha was shocked and wondered. They say I'm disrespecting the dead. How am I disrespecting them? These people are really hard to convince. Ban-ha then fell straight into the water. She thought she had logged out, but suddenly a sound rang out. Meow, system link successful, beginning to harmonize the host's memories. A moment later, Ban-ha opened her eyes again. However, she was now very surprised. Why doesn't she feel like she's drowning? A segment of memory then quickly appeared in Ban-ha's mind. You vile servant, you replaced my daughter to marry the dying son of the Truong family. Drown her for me. We don't want this failed substitute from the Truong family. We refuse it. Our poor Ban-ha, we couldn't protect you. These memory fragments kept swirling in her head, causing Ban-ha to be shocked and open her eyes wide. Very quickly, another memory segment appeared. Ban-ha, we are useless. We can only marry you to the demon on West Flower Mountain. Only he can protect you. Ban-ha now clutched her head in pain. What are these? Whose memories are these? My head is about to explode. At that very moment, Ban-ha suddenly opened her eyes and woke up. She was now lying on a bed in a cave on West Flower Mountain. Ban-ha then sat up and rubbed her aching forehead with her hand. Meanwhile, the sound of an argument rang out nearby. Second aunt, you can't do this. Please don't hurt her anymore. The woman called second aunt heard this, but didn't care and shouted loudly, how dare you? Sister, do you know that girl is the wife of the Truong family? Meanwhile, Ban-ha on this side was even more startled and shocked. I'm not dead, and moreover, looking at this familiar opening scene, I'm afraid I've traveled through time. Second aunt's voice still echoed in her ears. Quickly return her to me. She's still alive. If the Truong family finds out, they'll surely come knocking. When that happens, not only will your family be in trouble, but it will also implicate our family. Ban-ha now sat up and thought. So everything just now was the memory of this body. The owner of this body is a pitiful person, betrayed by relatives and sold as a ghost bride, even drowned to death. Just then, a man in white clothes suddenly jumped in, calling out wife. He then embraced Ban-ha, startling her. Glancing at the man's handsome face, Ban-ha immediately understood. Is this the husband she's supposed to marry? The man then smiled, causing Ban-ha to marvel. He's quite handsome indeed. Just then, the man glanced at second aunt and loudly threatened, don't come any closer, or I'll make you fly away. Hearing this, Ban-ha was bewildered, feeling that something was off. The man quickly hugged Ban-ha tightly and nuzzled his face against her, repeatedly calling her wife. Seeing this, Ban-ha's face darkened. Such childish behavior and illogical actions. Thinking this, Ban-ha quickly tried to stop the man who was puckering his lips, attempting to block him. Then she forcefully tapped his forehead and pushed the young man away. Seeing the man holding his head with teary eyes, Ban-ha felt utterly helpless. This is clearly an idiot. However, the man then tried to hug Ban-ha tightly again. Wife, she's a bad person. I must protect you. Hearing this, Ban-ha replied, then stopped causing trouble. Meanwhile, second aunt was shocked and fell to the ground. How can you speak? She was very worried inside. The whole Ban Thatch village knows that the eldest daughter is mute. Now that she can speak, won't she reveal everything about the Truong family? Just then, Ban-ha and the white-haired man approached second aunt. She coldly said, second aunt, you chased me all the way to the deep mountains. Aren't you afraid I'll tell the Truong family about your intentions and calculations? Hearing this, second aunt became angry and wanted to rush forward to slap Ban-ha. You damn girl. What nonsense are you talking about? However, just at that moment, the white-haired man suddenly rushed forward, shielding Ban-ha and blocking second aunt. He then coldly glared at her. Seeing this, Ban-ha couldn't help but think to herself, although he's an idiot, when it comes to fighting, he can be somewhat reliable. She then coughed a few times. Next, she secretly looked at second aunt and said, second aunt, you do anything for money. You accepted the betrothal gifts from the Truong family. So, the one who should be married off is your daughter Mai-hoa. Don't think that just because the young master of the Truong family is dead, you can blame everything on me. This statement from Banha immediately startled Second Aunt. Seeing this, Banha immediately frowned and continued, I was knocked unconscious by you and taken to the Truong family. I was drowned in place of your daughter. This debt must be settled clearly. Moreover, you should know that I almost died in the lake, and my father's legs were frozen trying to save me. His rheumatism has also worsened. For all these losses, you must pay 10 taels of silver as compensation. Hand it over now. If you don't give it today, I'll go to the Truong family and tell them everything. Hearing this, Second Aunt's face darkened as she shouted, 10 taels. Why don't you just rob me? She then rushed forward, grabbing Banha's collar, and yelled, you rotten girl. Don't think that just because you can talk, I'll be afraid of you. When the young master of the Truong family died, you were sleeping in the room. You were the one who killed him. Hearing this, Banha calmly replied, then let's bet on whether the Truong family wants me dead or wants to drag your daughter to her death. Second Aunt, hearing this, immediately bent down to pick up a rock. Then I'll kill you right now. Let's see if you can still go to the Truong family to complain or not. However, just at that moment, a strong hand reached out and gripped her hand tightly, causing the rock to fall. The man then coldly said, bad person, you dare to harm my wife. Banha, seeing the fool act like this, was very surprised. Unable to do anything, Second Aunt became furious and cursed. Lean Banha, don't think this wild man can protect you. Let's just wait and see. However, as Second Aunt turned to leave, Banha called out to her, Second Aunt, are you leaving? Hearing this, she angrily asked, you damned girl, what do you want? Banha immediately smiled, stroking the fool's face, and said, can you see Second Aunt off? Use that flying method. Hearing this, the fool immediately smiled and agreed. Banha couldn't help but marvel. This fool looks very handsome when he smiles. Right after, the fool quickly stepped forward and grabbed Second Aunt's collar. Next, he frowned and glanced outside the mountain cave. Then he used all his strength to throw Second Aunt flying. Seeing this scene, Banha and her mother were speechless. This man knows martial arts. That's what he calls flying. She's become a star in the sky now. After finishing, the fool happily went to grab Banha's shoulders. Banha's mother was also very happy and took her daughter's hand, saying, finally, someone can protect you. Now I can be at ease. Saying this, she turned to leave. Your father is still sick. I have to go down the mountain to take care of him. When the snow melts, we'll come up to visit you. After her mother left, Banha sighed and went to sit on the bed, thinking, mother is gone, but I still have to stay here. Next, Banha immediately looked around to observe the entire mountain cave. After assessing, she thought dejectedly, this place really only has 4 walls. There's nothing else. I wonder how that guy lives here. However, while she was pondering, the fool slowly approached from behind. Suddenly, the fool rushed to hug Banha, smiling and saying, wife, I just used flying to throw the bad person away. Wife, I want to have a baby. Come make a baby with me. Hearing this, Banha immediately blushed, her face turning red. What? Make a baby? Seeing the fool puckering his lips, Banha quickly stopped the young man, saying, what do you mean make a baby? Don't do anything rash. Seeing this, the fool shamelessly said, wife, I want to have a baby. Banha immediately panicked and shouted, don't come any closer. However, at this moment, because she was too flustered, she slipped. As she fell, she instinctively grabbed the fool's collar. Then she pulled him down onto the bed with her. Banha, embarrassed, quickly said, get off me quickly. But the fool pressed closer and calmly asked, clearly, you pulled me down, wife. Hearing this, Banha turned her face away in embarrassment and said, stay 3 steps away from me. Don't come closer. If not, I'll ignore you. Hearing this, the fool immediately teared up and hurriedly said, I understand, wife. Please don't ignore me. Meanwhile, Banha quickly jumped off the bed. She walked slowly outside. Banha suddenly discovered a ring on her hand. When did this ring appear? Meanwhile, the fool also ran after her, but kept a distance of 3 meters. Suddenly, the ring emitted a blue light. Banha was startled. It seemed like something wanted to come out. Just then, a hand emerged from inside the ring, accompanied by a stuck voice saying stuck. After a moment of struggling, an orange-haired boy with animal ears and a tail successfully jumped out. I almost died. Finally, I'm out. The little boy then wiped his sweaty forehead, panting and exclaiming, do I really need to lose weight again? Banha, seeing this magical scene, couldn't help but rub her eyes. I must be seeing things. Just then, the orange-haired boy angrily shouted, your eyes aren't deceiving you. I am the Wanbao system, because in your past life, your personality was too cold. So to help you learn how to love others, I chose you to participate in this game. That's the end of the explanation. Now, within half an hour, you must go to the Tun family to complete a midwifery mission. Before he could finish speaking, the system was grabbed by Banha, who pinched his cheeks. She then coldly looked at him and asked sternly, "Why should I listen to you? Is all of this you're doing? Quickly take me home." Hearing this, the system immediately got angry and pointed forward, saying, "Not carrying out the mission is considered a refusal." Initiating tests of hundreds of different ways to die. Now trying the first type, drowning. As soon as he finished speaking, a giant water ball immediately appeared. Next, the ball quickly swallowed Banha whole, causing her to suffocate. "What is this? Am I going to die again?" Helpless, she immediately looked towards the fool for help. Seeing her action, the fool was startled. However, the young man thought she was telling him to stay 3 meters away, so he didn't move at all. Meanwhile, Banha had run out of oxygen. Damn it, such a big thing. How come the fool doesn't seem to see anything? Moreover, it seems he can't see Wan Bao. Wan Bao then said smugly, "Now it's not too late to regret." Hearing this, Banha quickly said, "I don't want to die. I'll do the mission." Receiving the desired answer, Wan Bao immediately snapped his fingers. The water ball quickly receded, releasing Banha. Wan Bao smiled and said, "Isn't it better to agree early? I didn't want to use such rough methods." Seeing Banha suddenly kneeling on the ground, the fool quickly approached and asked, "Wife, what's wrong with you? Why do you look so pale?" Meanwhile, Wan Bao urged Banha to quickly go and complete the mission. Banha was truly scared now. "I don't have many lives to try different ways of dying. This punishment clearly targets my fear of death." She then turned to the fool and said dejectedly, "Young man, quickly take me down the mountain." Hearing this, the fool immediately agreed and happily ran off. A moment later, the fool returned and took out a fur coat to wrap around Banha. "All right, wife, quickly put this on. It's very cold outside." Seeing this, Banha thought to herself, he actually knows how to care for others. Next, the fool bent down and called wife. "Come on quickly. I'll carry you on my back." Banha then climbed onto the fool's back and hugged him tightly. However, she then asked curiously, "Aren't you going to ask why I'm going down the mountain? Do you trust me that much?" The fool, while carrying Banha, smiled and replied, "Because you're the wife I like. So I trust you. Hold on tight, wife." The fool then carried Banha down the mountain like that. A moment later, at a house at the foot of the mountain, screams could be heard from inside. "Ah, it hurts so much. Let me die. I don't want to give birth anymore." Just then, the fool, carrying Banha, arrived outside the house. Wan Bao immediately pointed inside and said, "This is the place." He then grabbed Banha's hair, pulling and urging her, "Hurry up and go inside to deliver the baby. If not, you'll never be able to return in this lifetime." Hearing this, Banha felt irritated and thought to herself, "I'm a forensic expert. My specialty is dissecting corpses, not delivering babies." Wan Bao, knowing Banha's thoughts, said, "This delivery is simple. Just leave it to me." So right after that, they quickly opened the door and stepped inside. An old woman inside, hearing the commotion, said happily, "Is the midwife here?" But when she saw Banha and the fool, she looked displeased. "Huh, why is it you two? What do you want?" Banha immediately smiled and said, "I'm here to deliver the baby." However, as soon as she heard this, the old woman quickly grabbed a broom to chase them away. "Don't cause trouble here. Go away, you unlucky ones." Seeing the old woman about to hit Banha's face with the broom, the fool quickly grabbed her arm and pulled her back. Then he shielded her with his back and shouted, "Don't hit my wife." Banha, seeing this scene, couldn't help but say angrily, "We have good intentions but are misunderstood. Fool, let's go. We won't bother them anymore." Just at that moment, a young man rushed in from outside, panting, "It's not good. The midwife has gone out and isn't at home. What should we do now? Knockney can't bear it anymore." Hearing this, the old woman despairingly sat down on the ground. "What? How can this be?" She then cried out loudly, "Oh heavens, you can't treat us like this. You can't let our Tun family line end." Glancing at Banha standing nearby, the old woman quickly approached and grabbed her hand, begging, "Girl from the Lean family, I beg you, please help Knockney." However, Banha immediately shook off her hand and said, "Didn't you tell me to get out? We were just about to leave as you said." The young man who had just returned was startled hearing this. He and the old woman then immediately knelt down in front of Banha, begging, "We beg you to save my wife and child." "Lean girl, I was wrong. I apologize to you. Please don't be petty with an old woman like me. Seeing this, the fool couldn't help but hurriedly say, Wife, can you help them? I really like babies. I don't want anything to happen to the baby. Seeing this, Banha couldn't say anything more and went straight inside. Moreover, she didn't forget to turn back and instruct the old woman and her son, if you want a safe delivery, don't come inside. 3 hours passed. The old woman and her son were very anxious, pacing back and forth praying. Meanwhile, the fool was sitting on the steps, bored, looking around. Just then, from inside came the sound of a baby crying, making the three of them very happy. It's born. Finally, it's born. A moment later, Banha came out carrying the crying baby and said, Mother and child are safe. Quickly hold the baby. Handing the baby to the young man, Banha also instructed, remember to find some mugwort, boil it in water, and use it to disinfect the mother's postpartum wound. The old woman and her son then gratefully looked at Banha and said, That's wonderful. Thank you, lean girl. Suddenly, the baby reached out and grabbed Banha's hand. While she was a bit bewildered, the others were very happy and said, The baby is holding your hand. It seems like it wants to thank you too. Hearing this, Banha immediately pondered, although I know this child is innocent, it still reminds me of that incident. After everything was settled, the old woman and her son took the baby inside. At that time, the fool had put another coat on Banha and worriedly said, Wife, are you not feeling well? Your complexion looks very poor. Banha covered her mouth with her hand and urged Fool, let's leave here as quickly as possible. As soon as she finished speaking, Banha fainted, making the fool very worried. A while later, Banha regained consciousness. She wondered if she was back in the mountain cave. But why did her body feel so heavy? Suddenly, the fool leaned over joyfully and said, Wife, are you awake? But when Banha clearly saw the situation, she immediately blushed. She saw that the fool was now lying on top of her. Seeing this, Banha panicked and shouted, What are you doing? As soon as she finished speaking, she unceremoniously pushed the fool away. Banha then frantically searched and arranged herself. Where are my things at my waist? Seeing this, the fool asked in confusion, Wife, what are you looking for? Hearing this, Banha turned to look at the young man and raised her hand, saying, Give me back my things. But when these words reached the fool's ears, they took on a different meaning. Oh, wife, are you talking about a baby? Hearing this, Banha immediately looked at the young man with murderous eyes, thinking to herself, What baby? I want to kill someone. But the fool was oblivious and continued smiling, saying, Don't rush, don't rush. I'll ask the Holy Mother to give you a child. Banha then realized the problem. The surgery bag wasn't with the fool, so there was only one possibility left. She then looked at the ring and called Wan Bao out. I know for sure you took it. Moreover, I've already delivered that baby. Quickly take me home. However, Wan Bao immediately smiled mischievously and replied, Please, can you listen to me completely from now on? Your mission isn't just that. You have to deliver 10,000 babies to complete it. Hearing the number 10,000, Banha immediately turned to stone. What? This is clearly a scam. Seeing Banha's terrible expression, the fool hurriedly asked with concern, Wife, what's wrong with you? Already irritated and now with the fool clinging to her, Banha turned and shouted, I told you not to call me. But before she could finish, her mouth was sealed by the fool's kiss. Seeing this, Wan Bao happily laughed and said, Congratulations, you've activated the husband-wife childbearing side quest. You and your husband will love each other and complete the mission of having 10 children. Hearing this, Banha immediately pushed the fool away and coldly glanced at Wan Bao, asking, Side quest, what the hell is that? Wan Bao quickly flew around happily, explaining, You have to have children with this fool. Moreover, you must have 10 of them. This is another condition for you to return. Saying this, Wan Bao pointed at the fool. Let me remind you of something. This is the man who has been bound to the system, so you can't change to someone else. Therefore, if you want to return, you must hold on tight. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Banha angrily gave him a slap, sending him flying. After doing so, she frowned and thought to herself, Damn it, what the hell is this? At this point, she angrily stood up to leave. I don't want this man at all. If you want me to have children, you might as well kill me. As she walked, Banha thought to herself, Due to circumstances, I have to live with this fool. Now, they want me to give birth to those soft, squishy creatures. What kind of joke is this? Wasn't I just thrown into ancient times? I can still survive. After all, I have a profession in autopsy to make a living. How could I starve like this? Seeing Banha suddenly leave the mountain cave. The fool panicked and hurriedly chased after her. Wife, are you angry? But Banha immediately turned back and shouted, don't follow me. If you do, I'll leave you. Do you understand? The fool, being scolded, couldn't help but look bewildered. However, out of concern, he still followed closely behind Banha. After a while, the fool grabbed Banha's hand and pulled her back, saying, wife, it's very cold outside. Can we go back to the mountain cave? I'll roast some meat for you to eat. However, Banha angrily shook off the fool's hand and shouted, stand there and don't move. The fool, being pushed away by Banha, looked a bit sad. Seeing that she had gone far, the fool quickly chased after her, calling wife, wife, please don't go. Just then the fool slipped. As a result, he fell straight to the ground. Banha, hearing the commotion, stopped. Glancing at the fool, Banha thought to herself in confusion, why does this fool keep bringing trouble upon himself? I don't know. Seeing the fool lying on the ground still, trying to call her, Banha resolutely turned and walked away. I've come this far. I can't soften my heart now. Seeing this, the fool could only kneel in the snow, watching Banha walk away. A while later, Banha had gone quite far. It's so cold. It's late at night now. If I keep going like this, I might get lost. I should take advantage of the fact that my footprints haven't been buried in the snow, yet to return to the mountain cave first. I'll leave when it's daylight. If that fool keeps waiting for me outside and gets frozen to the point of falling ill, it wouldn't be good. However, Banha was unaware that nearby, some people were hiding and observing her. Heavens, that demon isn't following her. Proceed as planned. Right after that, those people immediately rushed out towards Banha. Moreover, they were carrying ropes and sticks. Hearing the commotion, Banha turned her head in confusion. What's that sound? But before she could understand what was happening, a stick struck Banha's head, knocking her unconscious. Second Ant then approached, smiling maliciously, saying, you damn girl. I told you I'd make you face the consequences of what you've done. Then Second Ant urged the others to put Banha into a sack. However, just at that moment, the fool arrived carrying a coat, shouting loudly, stop. Release my wife immediately. Hearing this voice, Second Ant's face immediately turned pale as she turned to look. Seeing it was the fool, she panicked and shouted, the demon is here. Run quickly. But before they could run, one man was already tackled by the fool, his head slammed to the ground. Another received a powerful kick from the fool, spitting blood on the spot. The others were then beaten until they cried out for their parents. After finishing, the fool went to embrace Banha and wrapped her in the coat. Wife, I'm sorry I'm late. Meanwhile, the others lay beaten in a pile. Second Ant stood there stunned. The fool then hugged Banha and said softly, wife, let's go home. He then quickly picked her up and prepared to leave. Seeing the fool carrying Banha approaching her, Second Ant fearfully backed away. What do you want? The fool immediately frowned and said sternly, you're a bad person who deserves to be beaten. Second Ant, hearing this, immediately turned pale and hurriedly retreated. But how could she possibly escape? The next day at noon, the sun had already passed the mountain peak. Banha, after waking up, rubbed her head in confusion, wondering why she was in the mountain cave. Why am I here? Everything hurts so much. Seeing her awake, the fool, who was grilling meat nearby, immediately smiled and said, wife, you're awake. Come eat some meat. You need to regain your strength. So the young man happily brought a plate of meat to Banha. However, as soon as she smelled it, she covered her nose in discomfort. What's that smell? Keep it away from me. Hearing this, the fool immediately replied, it's grilled meat. It smells delicious. Wife, please eat. At this moment, Banha lowered her head and asked softly, did you come to find me last night? The fool happily recounted, Second Ant came here to harm you last time. Don't be afraid, wife. I've taught them a lesson they'll never forget. Saying this, the fool looked at Banha and asked, wife, aren't I amazing? Banha shyly said, I'm really grateful you came to save me last night. The fool was surprised to hear this. Then he quickly became joyful. I'm so happy. Wife is thanking me. I'm the happiest person in the world. He then lay down on the bed, glanced at Banha, and said gently, I can do anything for you, wife. Hearing this, Banha couldn't help but blush. To hide her embarrassment, she quickly grabbed a skewer of meat and changed the subject. I'm hungry. Give me the meat to eat. The two then focused on enjoying the grilled meat. However, while the fool was eating happily, Banha immediately spat it out. What is this? It's both fishy and smelly. Seeing the fool still wanting to eat more, Banha quickly knocked the skewer out of his hand. Fool, don't eat anymore. the food in his mouth flew out. The fool immediately lay on the ground, flailing. No, the meat tastes good. Seeing this, Banha shouted, "Don't eat any of the rest, and don't pick it up." Then she explained gently, "These pieces of meat have all gone bad and decomposed. Moreover, they're not cooked through. Eating them will definitely make you sick." Meanwhile, the fool was still kneeling on the ground, crying, "Boo-hoo, wife is bad. Wife won't let me eat meat." Suddenly, the fool stood up abruptly. Then he quickly turned and walked out of the mountain cave. Wife is evil. Wife is stupid. Hearing this, Banha was confused and thought to herself, "Not letting someone eat meat makes me a bad person. What kind of logic is that?" An hour later, Banha was sitting worriedly on the bed. "It's been so long. Why hasn't that fool come back? He's not angry and not coming back, is he?" Glancing outside the cave, Banha thought to herself, "Before, I felt very free being alone. Now that fool isn't here, this mountain cave seems too quiet." But just as she thought this, Banha startled, hurriedly hugging her head and rolling back and forth. "Why do I keep thinking about that fool?" Just then, suddenly a notification from Wan Bao appeared. Side quest, increase spousal affection. Kiss Guhan once. Give Guhan a bear fur coat for warmth. Completing the mission will earn you a set of top-grade kitchen utensils and cooking spices. Seeing the mission progress to be completed, Banha immediately asked in confusion, "Wan Bao, what are you talking about?" However, the fool had already returned. Moreover, he was holding a rabbit in his hand, saying happily, "Wife, I'm back. I caught a rabbit for you to eat." Seeing this, Banha muttered, "He really is a fool." Meanwhile, the fool was still smiling brightly. There were even rabbit footprints on his face. He then handed the rabbit to Banha, saying, "We're out of firewood. I'll go out to gather some. Wife, please hold this rabbit for me." Seeing the fool about to leave, Banha, after a moment of thought, pulled his hand back. The fool turned to look at her in confusion. Meanwhile, Banha blushed and hurriedly said, "I have something for you." Banha then took out a fur coat and gave it to the fool, saying, "It's cold outside. Put this on. Be careful not to catch a cold." The fool was very surprised to hear this. He then quickly hugged Banha. "Wife, why are you being so nice to me? I'm very healthy, not cold at all. Keep this coat for yourself, wife." Seeing this, Banha helplessly tapped the young man on the head. "Be good and listen. Bend down a little." The fool did as he was told, and Banha quickly tried to put the coat on the young man. Meanwhile, the foolish young man immediately pouted, thinking to himself, "I want to hug wife so badly." So after that, the young man quickly jumped to embrace Banha. "Wah wah wah! I can't hold back anymore. Wife, give me a hug." Seeing this fool hugging her tightly and not letting go, Banha hurriedly said, "Fool, wait a moment." But right after that, she lost her balance and fell down. Whether by accident or on purpose, she fell straight onto the fool's lips, kissing him. The atmosphere immediately froze at that moment. Banha then embarrassedly hurried to stand up. "Oh no, we kissed. I must quickly get up." However, the fool suddenly stuck out his tongue and lightly licked Banha's lips. Banha immediately panicked, hurriedly backing away and pointing while shouting, "Why did you stick out your tongue?" The fool immediately laughed and said, "Wife's lips are very soft, and they have a sweet fragrant smell too." While Banha was embarrassed, Wan Bao appeared with a notification. Side quest, increased spousal affection has been completed. You will be rewarded with a set of cooking utensils and spices. A while later, the poor little rabbit had turned into a hot, fragrant soup. Banha then ladled a full bowl for the fool. Seeing him hurriedly bring it to his mouth, she immediately said, "Slow down a bit. Be careful, it's hot." After eating that soup, the fool couldn't control his emotions and started crying. "Boo-hoo! I've never eaten such delicious rabbit meat before. Wife must have magic, right?" Seeing the fool eating happily, Banha thought to herself, "Do I have magic?" At this point, she understood everything clearly. Recalling her previous intimate moments with the fool, Banha immediately deduced, so all of Wan Bao's reward mechanisms are real. Moreover, these rewards are all related to that fool. The fool, while eating, suddenly looked at Banha. He saw that Banha had turned into a fox staring intently at the white rabbit. The fool smiled mischievously. "To continue living in this ancient world, I need to get more treasures from this little guy." That night in the mountain cave, the fire was still burning. The fool and Banha were lying comfortably on the bed. Banha thought to herself, "Finally, I can sleep. Moreover, this warm fur blanket is really cozy." Suddenly, the fool turned and softly called wife. He then reached out and hugged Banha's waist. Seeing this, Banha immediately panicked and sat up, asking, "What are you doing?" However, at that moment, the fool lunged forward and grabbed Banha's hand. Then he pinned her down on the bed. The fool then looked at Banha and asked softly, "Wife, can you have a child for me?" Banha, of course, immediately said no. But the fool forcefully pulled down her clothes. Banha panicked and thought to herself, "His strength is too great. I can't struggle at all." Right after, the fool locked his lips with Banha's. She thought, "Damn it, this fool doesn't even know how to kiss properly. My mouth hurts, he's bitten it and drawn blood." After a while, the fool finally released Banha's lips. The young man then happily smiled and said, "Wife, we're going to have a child now." After saying this, the young man quickly rolled over and went to sleep, leaving Banha bewildered, not understanding what happened. She then blushed with embarrassment. Next, she covered her face with a blanket and said softly, "This guy is really foolish." Luckily, he doesn't know exactly what steps are needed to have a child. Suddenly, something pressed against her bottom, startling Banha. As she turned her head, she saw the fool smiling at her. "Wife, what are the correct steps to have a child?" Saying this, the young man moved closer again. "Wife, can you teach me?" The next day, Banha went outside to gather snow for water. However, as soon as she finished, she had to pat her back. "My waist is so sore. That fool last night really..." Thinking about the ambiguous scene from last night, Banha couldn't help but feel angry. He kept asking her to teach him the correct method of having children. Who knows how to teach that? As she carried the snow inside, Banha thought, "Now I need to test whether just being intimate with the fool is enough to receive rewards from the system or not." As she entered, the fool immediately said loudly, "Wife, the hot water is ready." Hearing this, Banha told the young man to quickly undress. Hearing this, the fool's face suddenly turned red. He then put on an embarrassed expression and said, "Wife, you're being naughty." Seeing this scene, Banha felt irritated and shouted, "This is clearly me preparing a bath for you." A moment later, Banha, after closing her eyes to let the fool undress, opened them slightly and asked, "Fool, are you done undressing?" On the other side, the fool was still taking off his clothes. His body quickly revealed a perfect physique. Banha, seeing this, couldn't help but admire. "I didn't expect this fool to have such muscles. His figure is so beautiful." Right after, the fool finished undressing and happily ran naked towards Banha. "Wife, I'm done undressing." Seeing this, Banha was startled and panicked, shouting for the young man to quickly get into the bathtub. After saying this, she embarrassedly covered her eyes and threw the tub on the ground straight at the fool's head. Then the fool stepped into the tub of water. Banha approached to wash the fool's hair. The young man was thoroughly enjoying it, lying back contentedly. After a while of hard work, Banha became a bit tired and was panting. Suddenly, the fool reached out and touched Banha's chin. This startled her, making her open her eyes wide in shock. Seeing this, the fool calmly said, "Wife, you're sweating. Let me wipe it for you. I want to help you too." Hearing this, Banha's face turned red. She forcefully pushed the fool into the tub and shouted, "You just be good and let me wash you clean. That's already helping me a lot." Banha then scrubbed the fool's back while thinking, "This is exhausting. I wonder if after bathing him, Wan Bao will give any rewards." Suddenly, Banha seriously asked the fool, "What's your name?" The fool immediately smiled and replied, "Guhan." Gu means solid, Han means cold. People don't call me by my name. Those who come up the mountain all call me Demon. A moment later, Banha patted Guhan's back, saying, "The bath is done." Then she turned to leave. "You can dress yourself. I'm going to clean up a bit." However, Guhan suddenly grabbed Banha's hand and pulled her back. "Wife, my front hasn't been scrubbed yet." Banha, hearing this, was immediately startled and blushed, shouting, "Don't you know how to wash your front yourself?" However, Guhan still looked innocent and calmly said, "Wife said she would help me bathe." With no choice, Banha had to take the washcloth and scrub the front of Guhan's body. However, when scrubbing the lower part, Banha closed her eyes and did it quickly and carelessly. "Wamkhan tenapiliujavanna." "Wife, give me 3 kisses. I'm done bathing. I'll go catch a rabbit and roast it for you to eat." Meanwhile, Banha had inappropriate thoughts, so her face was flushed red. "So the front means chest and stomach. I thought it included everything." Suddenly, Wan Bao announced affection increased. Accompanying reward, 1.5 kilos of rice and 1.5 kilos of vegetables. Right after that, a basket full of vegetables and a bag of rice immediately appeared in front of Banha. Seeing this, the little fox Banha couldn't help but smile smugly. Today's plan is complete. Finally, we won't have to eat only meat anymore. So she then took a pot of boiling water to prepare to cook rice. However, seeing that the fool had been gone for a long time and hadn't returned, Banha became a bit worried. Just then, Guhan's voice calling wife rang out. Hearing Guhan's urgent voice, Banha panicked and quickly stood up, asking Fool what happened. Are you hurt? Seeing Guhan panting, carrying a woman on his back, Banha immediately approached and asked, what's going on? Who is this? But when she looked closely and saw it was her mother, Banha was startled. Mother, what happened to you, mother? Banha's mother weakly said, Banha, your father is about to die. Banha immediately grabbed her mother's hand and anxiously asked, Mother, what exactly happened? Please tell me quickly, mother. She burst into tears and explained, we were chased to the temple at the end of the village. Your father is barely breathing. Hearing this, Banha immediately frowned and said, Fool, let's go find father. Guhan quickly agreed. Right after, Guhan used his lightness skill to carry Banha and run quickly down the mountain. Meanwhile, Banha was feeling very uncomfortable and thought to herself, just how wonderful are these relatives of the original owner. Arriving at the dilapidated temple, Banha quickly saw her father gasping for breath, leaning against a pillar inside. Banha immediately rushed to her father. Father, I'll go into the village to find a doctor for you. Don't worry, father, everything will be fine. At this moment, Banha was a bit irritated and thought to herself, these relatives clearly want my parents to die. Then they'll steal our family's assets. How dare they kick us when we're down like this? I'll see how I deal with you all. Seeing Banha wanted to take her father away, Guhan immediately stepped forward and said, Wife, let me carry father. Banha nodded in agreement. All right, let's quickly go find a doctor. A moment later, they arrived at the doctor's house. Guhan immediately knocked on the door and called out loudly, Doctor, is anyone inside? Very soon, a middle-aged man opened the door. Who is it? It's so cold out. Seeing it was Banha's family, he was immediately startled. Why is it you? Banha hurriedly said, My father's life is in danger. Please examine and treat my father. However, the doctor immediately refused to examine him. Your sister Lean My Knee is about to become my daughter-in-law. With the relationship between our two families, I must certainly help my in-laws' side. After saying this, he decisively closed the door. However, Banha angrily kicked the door open and shouted, For such a trivial matter, you refuse to save a dying person. I won't be polite with you anymore. She then turned to Guhan and said, Fool, take my father inside to lie down. Guhan immediately complied. Seeing Guhan place Banha's father on the sickbed without permission, the doctor was immediately startled. He then angrily pointed at Banha and shouted, You're trespassing into a private home. He then called for some men with sticks. Someone chase them out for me. The men with sticks, following orders, immediately tried to hit Banha, causing her to close her eyes and cover her head. However, just as the sticks were about to strike, Guhan quickly embraced her waist and pulled her back. Then he used his back to shield her. Seeing Guhan bleeding from being hit, Banha was extremely worried. However, Guhan still smiled brightly and said it's nothing, I'm fine. But Banha couldn't help trembling. How can it be nothing? Seeing her like this, Guhan quickly raised his hand to wipe away the blood on his head. Then he smiled and said, Look, there's nothing anymore. However, behind him, one of the doctor's men charged forward with a stick. Seeing this, Banha, without thinking, rushed forward. Then she used her body to block that stick for Guhan. Seeing this scene, Guhan was extremely worried. Wife, you've been hit. Banha immediately said, I'm fine. It's not as serious as your injury. However, as soon as she finished speaking, Guhan reached out and grabbed the buck-toothed man. Then he pushed the man's head hard and slammed it against the wall. You dare to hurt my wife. Absolutely unforgivable. After dealing with one, Guhan continued to charge at the others. It only took a few seconds for him to completely subdue this group of people. Seeing this scene, the old doctor could only panic and call him a demon. However, just as Guhan was about to strike again, Banha stepped forward to stop him. That's enough, fool. If they won't treat him, so be it. There's another independent doctor at the end of the village. Let's take father to find that Dr. Ning. Hearing this, Guhan happily threw away the man in his hand and smiled, saying, All right, I'll do everything wife says. In the darkness of night, Guhan and Banha quickly carried her father to find Dr. Ning's house. But as soon as they stepped inside, Banha felt something was amiss. Why aren't the lights on? Could Dr. Ning be out? So she quickly went to push the door open. It's already evening. Why isn't the door closed? Surely, he can't be not here. However, As soon as they looked inside, Ban-ha and Gu-han were immediately startled and panicked. They saw a man lying face down on the floor. There were bloodstains around him. Seeing this, Ban-ha couldn't help but shout, "Dr. Ning." Ban-ha was a bit scared. Was this a robbery? Suddenly, the body on the ground moved, and then an arm reached out and grabbed Ban-ha's leg tightly. Seeing this, Ban-ha and Gu-han were startled and screamed, "Ah!" However, just then a lamp was lit. The man stood up and looked at Ban-ha's group, saying, "What are you people screaming about ghosts for? I just accidentally fell. Where's the ghost?" Ban-ha immediately trembled, pointing at the suspicious red stain on the man's clothes, asking, "Then what's that blood on you?" The man immediately replied, "It's medicine I spilled on myself." At this point, he glanced at Ban-ha's father and said, "The person you brought here is very ill." Hearing this, Ban-ha quickly took out money and handed it to the man. "Please, Dr. Ning, examine my father. This is the consultation fee." Hearing this, Dr. Ning immediately pointed to a nearby bed. "Put him on the bed." Ban-ha and Gu-han quickly helped her father to the bed and laid him down. Right after, Dr. Ning glanced at Gu-han and said, "Your head is injured. Let me—" But before he could finish speaking, Ban-ha grabbed Gu-han's hand and interrupted, "Please examine my father first, doctor. I'll treat his wounds myself." Hearing this, Dr. Ning understood and pointed to a nearby room. "That room has medicine for external wounds. You can go over there." A moment later, Ban-ha skillfully used cotton to clean Gu-han's wound. The young man flinched and trembled from the pain. Seeing this, Ban-ha put down the tools in her hand. Then she looked at Gu-han and asked softly, "Does it hurt?" Gu-han immediately shook his head. "I'm not afraid of pain." Hearing this, Ban-ha sighed helplessly. "Flinching like that clearly means it hurts. This time I'll be gentler." At this point, she picked up the tools again to treat Gu-han's wound. She also didn't forget to softly reassure him, "Our fool isn't afraid of pain." "Very good, it's done." Ban-ha took out a roll of bandage to dress Gu-han's wound. However, Gu-han now looked like he was trying to endure something. Right after, the young man, unable to hold back anymore, reached out towards Ban-ha. Then he quickly hugged her and said with a smile, "Wife, you really do treat me the best." Seeing this, Ban-ha could only helplessly push the young man away and say, "I'm not done applying the medicine. Sit up straight." But Gu-han, looking apologetic, leaned against Ban-ha and said softly, "Wife, I was really useless today. I couldn't protect everyone." Hearing this, Ban-ha immediately thought to herself, "Judging by this fool's voice, it seems like he's about to cry." Thinking this, she quickly reached out and placed her hand on Gu-han's head. Then she hugged him and comforted him. "It's not like that, fool. You protected me. You protected my family too. You did very well." She then put on a serious face. "It's just that I'm not strong enough now. Once Dr. Ning cures my father, I'll take everyone home. Then everything that belongs to us, I'll reclaim with interest." At this point, she sighed and said, "Be good and let me apply medicine for you." But Gu-han started to act spoiled. "But applying medicine hurts. Wife needs to hug and kiss me and spin me around before applying medicine." Hearing this, Ban-ha pushed Gu-han away. "You're clearly just a fool. How can you be so troublesome?" Then she leaned down and lightly kissed Gu-han's cheek. "Is this enough?" Receiving this unexpected gift, Gu-han happily said, "It really doesn't hurt anymore." How magical. Seeing this, Ban-ha continued to focus on applying medicine to the other wounds. However, she still felt a bit uncomfortable about the earlier incident. "It's a pity I couldn't teach that Lian a lesson. That face is really nauseating." Just then, Wan Bao suddenly appeared. "I think so too." Wan Bao then irritatedly rested his chin on his hand and said, "Humph, I don't like that uncle either." Hearing this, Ban-ha glanced at Wan Bao sarcastically and thought, "A midwifery system like you, what use is it if you dislike someone?" But Wan Bao immediately replied, "You don't need to worry. I'll create an opportunity for that Li Guy to kneel and beg before you." Outside, the door was suddenly thrown open. A man rushed in shouting, "Where is Lin Ban-ha?" After seeing Ban-ha, the man immediately grabbed her hand, wanting to pull her outside. "Lin Ban-ha, please save my wife." Seeing this, Gu-han immediately grabbed the man's hand tightly, telling him to let go. "Who gave you permission to touch my wife?" held tightly by Gu-han. The man immediately trembled and said, "I'm sorry. I was in too much of a hurry, but my wife." Seeing this, Ban-ha spoke up, "All right, fool, let him go." Hearing this, Gu-han quickly released his grip and pushed the man away. Ban-ha then spoke, "To save your wife, I have one condition." Hearing this, the man asked what condition. Ban-ha said, "If I remember correctly, your wife is Lian's daughter, isn't she?" The man immediately nodded, confirming, "That's right." Seeing this, Ban-ha smiled mischievously and continued, "Go find Lian and tell him to come beg me in person." A moment later, Gu-han was lying dejectedly on Ban-ha's lap. "Wife, will that evil man come?" Hearing this, Ban-ha leisurely sipped her tea and replied, "That depends on whether he cares about his daughter or not." Hearing this, Gu-han immediately raised his fist and smiled, "It's all right. If he doesn't come, I'll catch him and spank him to vent your anger, wife." Just then, there was a sudden knock at the door. Ban-ha immediately smiled and replied to Gu-han, "Not a bad idea. It's just a pity there's no chance to practice now." Right after that, Dr. Lee and the young man opened the door and entered. While Lee's attitude was still arrogant, the young man politely clasped his hands to Ban-ha and said, "Miss Lean, my father-in-law has arrived. Can we go now?" However, Ban-ha immediately said, "I told him to come beg me, not you. You'd better not say anything." Hearing this, Dr. Lee angrily shouted, "Little girl, don't get too cocky." Seeing him like this, the young man hurriedly tried to stop him. "Father-in-law, please think of Gwen Nok." Hearing these words, Lee had to restrain himself. He then took out a money pouch and handed it to Ban-ha. "Lean girl, what happened before was our fault. Please don't hold a grudge. Please help Gwen Nok and the baby. This silver is compensation for you. As for the copper coins, after the baby is born, I'll have Zhang, so bring them later." Hearing this, Ban-ha happily took the money pouch and smiled, saying, "Go to the next room and apologize to my father." Lee immediately gritted his teeth and replied, "Fine, I'll go now." So after that, Lee had to go apologize to Ban-ha's father. Meanwhile, Gu-han happily hugged her. "Wife is so amazing." Ban-ha smiled and replied, "Of course. I couldn't let you be wrongly accused." Gu-han pressed his face against Ban-ha's and said admiringly, "Wow, wife avenged me. Wife is so good." Hearing this, Ban-ha immediately replied, "Who said it was revenge for you? I avenged my father." A moment later, Dr. Lee came out. Seeing this, Zhang So hurriedly said, "Miss Lean, can we go now?" Ban-ha had no reason to refuse, so she also started walking. "All right, let's go, fool. We're going to save someone." However, after arriving, Ban-ha was immediately stunned by the scene before her. She saw a pregnant woman in front of her bleeding profusely, writhing on the bed. "What's going on here? Last time it was difficult labor. This time it's hemorrhage. How can you say this isn't dangerous? Are you trying to trap me?" Hearing this, Wan Bao immediately appeared and said, "I didn't expect things to turn out like this either." Seeing Gwen Nok weakly grasping her hand, Ban-ha thought to herself, "Forget it. Deal with the situation at hand first. I'll settle with you later." A moment later, from inside the room, the cry of a baby could be heard. Zhang So and Dr. Lee were immediately overjoyed. "It's born. It's finally born." Right after, Ban-ha pushed the door open and handed the baby to Zhang So to hold. Seeing this, Zhang So anxiously asked, "Miss Lean, how is my wife doing?" However, Ban-ha didn't answer and quickly went back inside. Seeing this, Gu-han immediately grabbed her hand. "Wait, wife." Ban-ha looked a bit displeased and asked, "What do you want?" But before she could finish speaking, Gu-han kissed her right in front of the two Lee family members. Gu-han then smiled and said, "Wife, don't worry. You're the most capable. Everything will be fine." Hearing this, Ban-ha pushed Gu-han away. Then she embarrassedly wiped her mouth before turning to leave. She also instructed Gu-han not to let anyone inside. As soon as she closed the door, Ban-ha was immediately dazzled by the light inside the room, blinding her eyes. Seeing the scene before her, she couldn't contain her excitement. She saw that inside, the room was equipped with many advanced machines to support the treatment. Wan Bao hurriedly said, "This is the reward for you and Gu-han, increasing your intimacy level. It's just in time to be useful." Hearing this, Ban-ha pouted and thought to herself, "Should I thank that fool who's always taking advantage of me? But never mind, saving a life is more important." With that thought, she went to Gwen Nok to continue working. A while later, the door opened again. Ban-ha, with a pale face and swaying body, slowly walked out. Seeing this, Zhang So immediately approached and asked, "Miss Lean, how is Gwen Knock? Banha replied, she's fine. I'll come back in 2 days. As soon as she finished speaking, Banha became unsteady and was about to fall. Seeing this, Zhang so quickly caught her. Banha rubbed her forehead and said, it's nothing. Just now I was momentarily dizzy, that's all. However, seeing Banha being held by someone else, Guhan jumped up and quickly snatched her away, shouting, wife belongs to me. Only I can touch her. Seeing this, Banha immediately explained he was just supporting me. You don't need to. But before she could finish her sentence, Guhan was already tearing up. Wife is helping him. So after that, Guhan immediately picked Banha up. No way. Now I have to take wife home. With that, he carried her away as quick as lightning. In the end, Banha could only use all her strength to call back to the 2 Li family members. Don't forget the copper coins your father-in-law promised me. You must bring them to me. The father and son were left speechless at this sight. Very quickly, Guhan had brought Banha back to Dr. Ning's house and sat her down on a chair. Banha complained, I just said a few words you didn't like, and you brought me back. However, at this moment, Guhan seriously called out, wife. Then he quickly rushed over to undress Banha. I'll help you take a fragrant bath. Banha blushed and shouted. Meanwhile, Guhan continued, fragrant bath, kisses, hugs, I want to do it all. Saying this, he hugged Banha. Wife can't abandon me. Hearing this, Banha immediately thought to herself, could this fool be jealous? So she then patted the young man's shoulder to comfort him. All right, I will never abandon you. Guhan immediately brightened up. Really? Banha smiled and replied, really? Go prepare some water for me. I should take a bath too. Alright, I'll go right away. A while later, Banha was relaxing in the hot water tub. Tired all day. Finally, I can rest and relax. Suddenly, Guhan burst through the door. Wife, I've washed your clothes clean. Banha was startled and shouted, didn't I tell you not to come in here? Meanwhile, Guhan glanced at the towel hanging nearby and became very happy. The young man quickly grabbed the towel and approached. I want to help wife take a fragrant bath. But Banha panicked and splashed water at the young man. Don't come any closer. However, right after that, Banha came to her senses. She saw Guhan looking very hurt and softly asking, wife, do you hate me that much? Hearing this, Banha panicked internally. Oh no, he's really hurt. So she quickly forced a smile to comfort Guhan. How could it be? Because I'm not good. Go change in the next room quickly. Hearing this, Guhan perked up like he grew ears and waved excitedly. The young man then enthusiastically took off his clothes saying, I won't change. I'm already wet anyway. I want to take a fragrant bath with wife. So after that, the whole house was filled with Banha screams. Don't undress. Don't come in here. However, Dr. Ning was calmly watering his flowers, not caring at all. That night, Guhan happily hugged Banha tightly. Wife, you smell so good. Banha, lying in the young man's arms, thought darkly, I didn't expect he'd achieve his goal in the end. Suddenly, Guhan reached out to lift Banha's chin. Then he quickly lowered his head and locked her lips in a kiss. However, Banha immediately pushed the young man away, saying, who kisses by biting the other person? It hurts so much. As soon as she finished speaking, Wan Bao appeared with a notification. Ding ding. It's mission time. He then smiled mischievously and said, you have to teach Guhan how to kiss. Hearing this, Banha immediately protested angrily. Why do I have to teach this fool? Wan Bao smiled lewdly and replied, because the reward for this mission is fever. Medicine. Hearing this, Banha couldn't help but be startled. Seeing this, Wan Bao immediately emphasized, you should know that your father's illness can't be cured if you only rely on the medicine of this era. Hearing this, Banha frowned and said, you only know how to take advantage when others are in danger. But because she had no choice, Banha then forcefully pulled Guhan over. Right after, she quickly rushed forward to kiss the young man. After a while, they separated. Banha then said softly, that's what you call a kiss. Have you remembered it? At this point, Banha pushed Guhan onto the bed. If you haven't remembered, it's okay. I'll teach you tonight. After saying this, she leaned down again and locked lips with the young man. The room then fell into silence. Only dim light remained. Early the next morning, Dr. Ning entered the sick room and was surprised to see Banha feeding medicine to her father. Miss Lin is truly filial. Up so early to feed medicine to your father. Hearing this, Banha turned to look at him. However, seeing her swollen lips, Dr. Ning was startled. "Miss Lean, your mouth." At this point, Dr. Ning immediately clapped his hands in realization. So the young man then approached Banha with a smile, saying, "The marital affection between you two is very good." Hearing this, Banha immediately changed the subject uncomfortably. "I'm going to town to prepare some New Year's items. I'll have to trouble you to look after my parents," she said, then quickly left. Dr. Ning called after her, "I understand. You can go with peace of mind." So Banha quickly called for Guhan, and they set off together. Just as they stepped outside the gate, Banha tiredly stretched her back, thinking transportation in the past was so inconvenient. It takes a whole day just to get into town. Suddenly, Wan Bao appeared in a panic, announcing an urgent mission. "Quickly go to the Zhou family's house in town. If not, someone will lose their life." A moment later, at the Zhou family's house, Master Zhou was already very angry. "Where's Xiao Shui? It's just picking someone up. Why is she so slow?" Just then, the maid named Xiao Shui brought Banha in. "Master, she's here." However, when Master Zhou saw Banha, he immediately said irritably, "We invited old lady Yang from the west side of town." Hearing this, Banha quickly bowed and replied, "My master fell and was injured on the way, unable to travel, so she sent me to work for Master Zhou. I've been fully briefed on the situation by my master. I guarantee I won't disappoint Master Zhou." Although Master Zhou was a bit uneasy, he had no other choice and pointed inside, saying, "That's fine then. I just need the adult to be safe. That little bastard can't be kept, do you understand?" Hearing this, Banha immediately understood the problem. So this was a young lady who got pregnant before marriage. Banha thought as she walked inside. No wonder that system wouldn't reveal the mission, and it wouldn't let the fool come along. A while later, Banha had successfully delivered the baby and was holding it, thinking to herself, "This baby cried twice after being born and then fell asleep. But what should I do next? I can't kill it." Just then, Ms. Zhou pointed at the jewelry on the table and shouted, "Did my father give you money to come here? On that table is all my jewelry. You can take them all." Banha heard this and looked over questioningly. Ms. Zhou continued, "I only beg you one thing. Please save this child. As long as it lives, I'll do anything you ask." After saying this, she covered her face and cried loudly. Seeing this scene, Banha sighed and thought to herself, "I knew midwifery missions have always been tiring work that doesn't get appreciated by others." Then, she gently opened the window and called for the fool. Immediately, the young man poked his head in and asked, "Wife, you called." Seeing this entrance, Banha angrily shouted, "Get down here and talk properly." Guhan immediately nodded. "Also, for your future work performance, you need to carefully review these videos." Banha saw this and couldn't help but think something was different about Wan Bao. "You even have foreign businesses. You're quite well prepared." Wan Bao proudly replied, "Of course. I'm a professional after all." So Banha then began to search for necessary items. "First, let's exchange for some medicine and warm items." The next morning, as soon as Banha stepped outside, she saw her mother sweeping the yard. "Mother, did you sleep well last night?" Her mother replied, "Thanks to that warming bag or whatever you gave us. Your father and I haven't slept so warmly in a long time." Hearing this, Banha happily waved her hand. "That's good then. I'll go cook rice first." A while later, Banha had finished cooking. However, she was still a bit regretful. "It's a pity there's no salted egg. I really crave meat and salted egg porridge." Suddenly, second aunt walked in. "You're cooking porridge." After saying this, she casually scooped some porridge and then started ordering Banha around. "It's even meat porridge. I'll take a bowl. Later, go to your uncle's place to clean up and then wash the dishes too. Remember to clean my room and kitchen as well." However, Banha immediately grabbed her hand to stop her. "This porridge is for my family, not for you. If you want to eat, cook it yourself. Also, clean your own room." "I won't do it." Second aunt, hearing this, shouted, "You little brat," showing no respect. "If it weren't for you, all your rooms would be mine." She then forcefully pulled the bowl of porridge from Banha. "What's wrong with eating a bowl of your porridge? Give it to me quickly." Hearing this, Banha immediately smiled mischievously. "You want it that badly?" Then she directly let go of her hand. "Fine, I'll give it to you." But due to inertia, the bowl of porridge spilled all over second aunt. She quickly cried out, "Hot, hot," and threw the bowl away. Seeing this, Banha sarcastically said, "What a waste. Anyway, I only gave you that bowl. Now there's no more, so make it yourself." After saying this, Banha immediately called out loudly, "Fool, come carry the porridge." Hearing this, Guhan quickly responded. Meanwhile, second aunt was so angry she was grinding her teeth. You little beast, how dare you treat me like this? Then she quickly bent down and grabbed a burning piece of firewood. She then thrust it straight at Banha. You beast, die for me. Banha was startled and glanced over, but couldn't react in time. Suddenly, Guhan appeared and grabbed second aunt's hand, stopping her. His eyes changed at this moment. Attacking my wife. Do you want to die right now? Then he forcefully twisted second aunt's arm backwards, causing the firewood to stab straight into her body. Seeing her cry out in pain for help, Guhan remained completely calm. Suddenly, memories flooded back into Guhan's subconscious. He was standing high up. Around him, many people were kneeling and shouting loudly, "Welcome, Your Majesty. Welcome, Your Majesty." Next was a scene of someone wearing a robe instructing him, "Your Majesty, you must remember to take this medicine on time." That person especially reminded him, if you don't take it, something will happen. At this point, Guhan frowned, showing pain. Below, second aunt was still writhing in pain. Meanwhile, Guhan clutched his head and ran outside. Hearing the commotion, Banha's mother came in, worriedly asking Banha what had happened. Banha hurriedly explained, "Guhan seems unusual. I'll chase after him to see." She ran straight outside. Now snow was falling heavily. Banha shouted loudly, "Fool, where are you? Answer me. Guhan, come out here. Guhan." Suddenly, a howl rang out, startling Banha. Right after, a pack of snow wolves appeared, surrounding Banha. Seeing the growling snow wolves in front of her, Banha quickly backed away. This is bad. I didn't expect to run into snow wolves. Glancing at the tree behind her, Banha didn't think twice and turned to run towards it. I'll have to take a chance. Meanwhile, the snow wolves were chasing closely behind her. Suddenly, a wolf jumped up, trying to pounce on Banha. Banha quickly hugged the tree trunk. Then she used her strength to kick and climb up. The wolf, seeing this, could only stand below, angrily looking up. Banha was panting, hugging the tree trunk tightly. Good thing I know how to climb trees, or I'd be dead here. But seeing the wolves below still not willing to leave, Banha was very worried. Staying in the tree forever isn't a solution either. So she immediately asked the system, "Wanbao, does the system have any life-saving tools?" Wanbao chuckled and replied, "No. I'm a lifestyle system." Hearing this, Banha couldn't help but get angry. "Then tell me what use you are." Below, a wolf suddenly backed up to gain momentum. Then it used all its strength to run forward. Finally, it jumped up forcefully, trying to bite Banha. Luckily, she pulled her legs back in time to avoid it. But although she wasn't bitten, Banha lost her balance. As a result, she slipped and fell straight down. At that moment, Guhan suddenly appeared, jumping towards her. He then hugged Banha and asked worriedly, "Wife, are you all right?" Banha was surprised to see the young man. Meanwhile, Guhan was still smiling happily, saying, "Great, wife came to find me." Banha angrily shouted, "How dare you say that?" But then she quickly said, "Now's not the time for this. Let's go home and talk later." But before she could finish speaking, a snow wolf charged at them. Seeing this, Guhan hugged Banha with one arm and struck out at the wolf with the other. However, the wolves quickly howled. Right after, many more wolves came. Banha worriedly said, "This isn't right. It seems there are more and more wolves." Guhan calmly replied, "Starving for so many days, and now prey comes to their door, so it's normal." Guhan then told Banha to hold on tight to him. He would break them out of there. After saying this, he kissed her forehead. That night, the sound of wolves howling echoed through the hills. Now Guhan was severely injured and unconscious. Banha, while tending to him, asked the system, "Wanbao, tell me his condition." Wanbao immediately replied, "Chest scratched and wounded, arms and legs bitten. Luckily, no damage to tendons or bones." Hearing this, Banha said, "I've already injected serum into the wounds. Now I'll give him a rabies shot. Go outside the cave and see if there are any wolves following us. If you see any tracks in the snow, let me know." Wanbao immediately saluted and replied, "Yes, ma'am." Right after, Banha skillfully injected the medicine into Guhan's arm. As she injected, she thought, now snow covers the whole mountain. Guhan is injured. I don't know how many days we'll be trapped here. If only I had saved some money before. It would be convenient to exchange for some items now. At this point, Banha gently kissed Guhan's forehead and whispered, "Fool, you must not have anything happen to you. When you're better, I'll take you home." Because it was so cold, Banha then built a fire. She also hugged Guhan tightly and covered him with a blanket. But Guhan still felt cold. Just then Wanbao asked, "How is he?" To help him warm up, "Have you taken off all his clothes? Don't let him get sick before he recovers." Banha replied, "I'm fine. I'm just worried about his high fever. I don't know if he can withstand it." Hearing this, Wanbao assessed Guhan and said, "His constitution is very good. He should be fine. You should get some sleep too. I'll help you watch over him. You've been tired all day." Banha was feeling sleepy, so she nodded in agreement. However, when Banha fell into a deep sleep, unconsciously a familiar scene appeared. She was now in her previous life's form. In front of her was a little boy. Banha happily called out, "Sheng, are you alright?" "It's great. I missed you so much." Banha then went to hug the child, and he smiled, saying, "If so, then come with me, sister." As he finished speaking, the boy reached for Banha's neck. Then, without hesitation, he squeezed her neck hard. Banha immediately sensed something was wrong. "This isn't right. Shinger wouldn't treat me like this. I must be dreaming. I need to wake up quickly." Right after that, she opened her eyes and woke up. However, there were still hands squeezing her neck. Guhan smiled eerily and said, "Oh, finally awake." Guhan then coldly asked, "Tell me, who sent you?" He also looked around, considering, and asked further, "And where exactly is this place?" Seeing Banha not answering, Guhan suspiciously lowered his head. "Are you stupid?" Saying this, Guhan increased the force on Banha's neck. "Or do you really think I won't kill you?" At this moment, a tear rolled down her cheek. Banha struggled to call out, "Fool." Guhan was startled and quickly withdrew his hands. He then looked confused at Banha coughing in front of him, thinking to himself, "Why does seeing her cry make me feel heartache?" Meanwhile, Banha was also surprised. What's going on? Has he regained his memory, or is this a split personality? At this point, Banha quickly sat up and pushed Guhan away. "Anyway, I should stay as far away from him as possible." But Guhan grabbed her hand, pulling her back, saying, "Wait." He then hugged her and said softly, "Don't go." However, as soon as he said this, Guhan was once again confused. "Why doesn't seeing her make me feel troubled? Didn't this woman poison me?" Banha now softly called out, "Fool." But seeing no reaction from him, she changed her way of addressing him and called Guhan. Hearing this, Guhan lowered his head, looking at Banha suspiciously. He then lifted her chin and asked, "You know me?" Banha heard this and was confused. "You don't remember anything." But as soon as she finished speaking, she sneezed loudly. Seeing this, Guhan worriedly laid her down. "Lie down quickly. Be careful not to catch a cold." Banha rubbed her nose, thinking, "My nose is stuffed. I hope I'm not really getting sick." Meanwhile, Guhan was also very confused. "What am I doing? Why did I unconsciously hug her? Didn't I hate women the most who dared to climb into my bed?" Suddenly, Banha turned and poked Guhan's cheek, asking, "Why do you have this expression? Have you remembered, or are you being foolish again?" Guhan immediately grabbed Banha's hand tightly. "You seem to understand me very well." Then he put her down. "Why don't you tell me, what exactly is our relationship?" Seeing Banha not saying anything, Guhan immediately glanced at her. "If you don't want to say, actions are fine too." Seeing this, Banha panicked and quickly said, "Wait, what are you trying to do?" But before she could finish speaking, Guhan had already locked her lips. Then he moved downwards, causing Banha to panic greatly. However, seeing her trembling like this, Guhan teased, "I haven't done anything yet. Why are you already so scared?" Banha, with tears in her eyes, softly begged, "Don't, please don't." Seeing her like this, Guhan couldn't help but curse, "Damn it." And right after that, he continued to entangle with Banha. Daring to look at me with that expression, even ghosts couldn't resist. Suddenly, "Wait, fool." But unexpectedly, a pain shot through him, making Guhan grimace. Then he directly fainted, falling onto Banha. This made her very worried. "What's wrong with you, fool?" She didn't forget to call the system. Wanbao, quickly check what's wrong with Guhan. After checking, Wanbao spoke up, "It's nothing. He just fainted." Hearing this, Banha questioned, "Didn't you say you'd help me watch over him? Why didn't I see you anywhere when I woke up?" Wanbao scratched his head, embarrassedly replying, "I was a bit tired, so I fell asleep. When I woke up, you two were like that, so I didn't dare to disturb." Hearing this, Banha was speechless. "Really, what use are you?" Banha then laid Guhan down on the bed and covered him with a blanket. Never mind, fainting is good too. It avoids strange things happening. But I wonder if when he wakes up, will he have recovered or not? The next morning, Ban-Ha drowsily woke up. She then rubbed her eyes and called fool. However, she quickly discovered that Gu-Han wasn't in bed. So Ban-Ha hurriedly put on her clothes and wanted to go look for him. He hasn't run off somewhere again, has he? But Gu-Han's voice immediately rang out. Wife, who are you saying ran off? Seeing Gu-Han, Ban-Ha asked worriedly, why are you up? Your wounds. Gu-Han, holding a rabbit, smiled brightly and replied, I'm fine. Look, I even caught a rabbit for you. Ban-Ha asked suspiciously, do you recognize me? Gu-Han immediately came over and kissed Ban-Ha. Wife is wife. Seeing this, Ban-Ha thought to herself, looks like he's foolish again. That's good. Otherwise, I really wouldn't know how to deal with him. Right after, Ban-Ha turned and walked away, saying, if you can walk, let's go down the mountain. You're injured. Remember to rest well when we get home. Gu-Han happily agreed. He then smiled meaningfully and said, I'll do everything wife says. A while later, they both arrived home. Ban-Ha yawned and said, finally home. I wonder if mother was worried. However, second aunt immediately rushed out and shouted, well done. You dare to come back. I finally caught you, you little beast. She then quickly approached and grabbed Ban-Ha's hand, yelling, come on, follow me to the magistrate's office. I must report this. Seeing second aunt pulling Ban-Ha, Gu-Han couldn't help but grab her hand and pull it away. Let go of my wife. He then coldly glanced at second aunt and asked, did I allow you to touch her? But knowing she couldn't win in a fight, the old woman turned to making a scene, shouting loudly, help. Murder. Someone come quickly. Fifth uncle, hearing the commotion, hurriedly came out. He then approached second aunt and asked, mother, what are you doing? Second aunt angrily said, look at my injuries. Today, if I don't take this beast to the magistrate, I won't live anymore. Hearing this, fifth uncle immediately tried to persuade her mother, for our future, we can't have a criminal record. Why won't you listen? Second aunt immediately pointed at Ban-Ha and shouted, then should I suffer for nothing? I don't care. I must go to the magistrate. If not, they must compensate me. However, Ban-Ha immediately laughed. All right, let's go to the magistrate then. She then stepped forward and grabbed second aunt's hand, wanting to drag her along. Don't forget, you were the one who thrust that burning stick at me first. We haven't even sued you for attempted assault yet. Hearing this, fifth uncle asked, mother, is what Ban-Ha said true? Second aunt immediately lowered her head, speechless. Seeing this, Ban-Ha crossed her arms and said to her, it's useless not to admit it. Such a big incident happened yesterday, so no one thought about cooking. Perhaps the stick used to attack me is still in the kitchen. Right after that, Ban-Ha immediately transformed into Conan and analyzed, I've heard that officials can determine the direction of the stick based on the wound direction. Moreover, that stick is rough and uneven. It might have torn the threads of the attacker's clothes. We can also look at the shape of the stick to further judge who used it. Next, the colors of second aunt's and Gu-Han's clothes are different. Just by investigating, we can certainly determine the culprit. At this point, Ban-Ha raised her finger. So there's only one truth. She then pointed straight at second aunt. The culprit is you. She then crossed her arms and said, I remember those who intentionally injure others will be beaten. Second aunt is already old. I wonder how many blows she can take. Saying this, she quickly pulled second aunt along. If second aunt wants to go, then as a junior, I must naturally accompany her. Fool, go fetch that stick. Gu-Han nodded and said, all right, but just then, second aunt forcefully pulled her hand back. She then quickly went into the house. Not going anymore, not going. I want to go back to my room to rest. Seeing this, Ban-Ha smiled and said, then I'll tell Gu-Han to keep that stick. When second aunt wants to go, remember to call me. After dealing with the old woman, Ban-Ha turned to fifth uncle and asked, Uncle, why are you looking at me like that? Fifth uncle said, this time you've returned, you seem to have changed a lot. Ban-Ha smiled meaningfully. Uncle, what are you saying? Being bullied for so long, one has to change, right? Fifth uncle then seriously said, anyway, I'll keep an eye on mother. Don't cause any more trouble for me. Ban-Ha immediately waved happily. Then uncle must watch second aunt very carefully. Seeing fifth uncle go into the house, Ban-Ha didn't forget to say loudly, good luck on your exams, uncle. She then thought to herself, this way, second aunt probably won't cause trouble for a while. Suddenly seeing Gu-Han staring at her, Ban-Ha asked in confusion, why are you looking at me like that? Gu-Han immediately hugged Ban-Ha and nuzzled her. Wife is so amazing. I must give wife a kiss. Hearing this, Ban-Ha was speechless. However, before she could react, Guhan had already taken advantage, and Banha then hurriedly pushed the young man away. "All right, we've been out for a day and a night. Let's quickly go report to father and mother that we're safe." Guhan naturally agreed, "Okay, I'll listen to wife and everything." A moment later, while Guhan was playing with Shinger, Banha lay on the bed looking at the jade pendant, thinking to herself, finally able to rest. "Earlier in the mountain cave, I used up all the silver on me to treat the fool's illness. Looks like it's time to pawn this jade pendant." Suddenly, Guhan rushed over and started acting spoiled. "Wife, what are you thinking about? You're not even looking at me and Shinger." Banha said, "Don't be naughty. I'm thinking about how to make money." Saying this, Banha held up the jade pendant in her hand. "Tomorrow, come with me to town to pawn this jade pendant." Guhan was immediately startled. "But this jade pendant is very important to wife." Banha smiled and replied, "Keeping it won't turn it into food. Let's just decide on this." However, Guhan hurriedly said, "Wait, I have something else for wife." The next day at the pawn shop, Banha asked Guhan, somewhat hesitantly, "Do you really want me to pawn this?" Guhan happily replied, "Of course. I specially went up the mountain to get it for wife." Hearing this, Banha hesitantly pulled his hand. "But this thing," seeing the two pulling back and forth, the shop assistant couldn't help but ask, "Hey, you two, are you going to pawn something or not?" Guhan, holding Sheng, raised the token and smiled, saying, "Of course. Please take a look at this." Meanwhile, Banha worriedly thought, "Is he really giving it? Is that okay? This token looks worthless at first glance. If it's really not worth anything, then we'll pawn that jade pendant instead. Good thing I brought it along." However, as soon as the assistant took the token to look at it, he was shocked. While the shop assistant was extremely shocked, having recognized something, Guhan was happily playing with Shinger. Banha, seeing the assistant's expression, was also very worried. Why does the pawnbroker have that expression? Surely, he doesn't think we're trying to trick him. But right after that, the assistant hurriedly clasped his hands respectfully and said, "Honored guests, please come inside and sit. This business is too big, so I don't dare make the decision. Let me go invite the manager here." Hearing this, Banha was completely bewildered, not understanding anything. The scene changes to inside, where the fat manager was lying enjoying a beauty's massage when the assistant rushed in, panting. "Manager, there's good news. We've found the sect leader." As soon as he heard this, the manager hurriedly sat up and asked, "Really?" He then urgently urged the assistant, quickly, take me to see him right away." But Guhan suddenly appeared, saying, "Not so fast." He then smiled and asked, "Manager Thursday, are you well?" The manager and assistant immediately knelt down. "Your subordinates pay respects to the sect leader." Seeing this, Guhan told them both to stand up. Manager Thursday then quickly put on a flattering demeanor. Does the sect leader have any instructions? In his heart, he thought the sect leader is still as handsome as ever. Then, Guhan approached and whispered something into Manager Thursday's ear. For a moment, Banha was now sitting in a private room drinking tea and waiting. Guhan returned at this time and sighed, "Wife, I'm back. This room is so big, it took me a long time to find a toilet." Banha trembled and hurriedly said, "Come here quickly and hold Shinger." However, Guhan had brought a chair next to Banha. "I want to sit with wife." Hearing this, Banha had to reply, all right. Behave yourself a bit." Then Banha handed Shinger to Guhan. Just then, Manager Thursday came over and spoke. "I apologize. There was a small matter at home that took some time. I've kept you waiting for a while." Hearing this, Banha stood up and said, Not at all. But Manager Thursday continued in his flattering mode, saying, "How much money does Madam need?" Banha was taken aback and let out a surprised huh. Seeing this, Guhan immediately gave a cold glance to Manager Thursday. This made him break out in sweat as he hurriedly said, "Look at me being hasty and forgetting to explain to Madam. The token Madam brought to pawn looks ordinary, but in reality, it's made from 1,000-year-old dark iron. It's not cheap at all. How much would Madam like to exchange it for?" Banha heard this and forced a smile. She thought to herself, "Why do I feel like there's something strange about this manager? Could it be?" Then she quickly turned her head to look at Guhan. However, the young man immediately feigned innocence and asked wife, "What's wrong?" Seeing this, Banha said it was nothing and turned back to Manager Thursday to probe, "I want 10,000 silver taels. But since it's not easy to carry, I'd like to leave it here. I'll come to get it when I need it." Manager Thursday, of course, didn't suspect anything and directly agreed. "No problem. Consider this token as a proof of deposit. Whenever Madam needs money, just come and take it." Seeing Seeing this, Banha sighed. Indeed. She then smiled and pointed at Guhan, asking the manager, tell me straight, do you recognize this token? And do you know my man? The manager was startled and froze. Meanwhile, Guhan happily thought to himself, her man. That's quite a nice way of addressing me. On the other side, Manager Thursday was vehemently denying, Madam must be joking. This young master is handsome and has an extraordinary aura. If I had the fortune to know him, how could I pretend not to know him? However, Banha was still very suspicious and thought, it seems the manager's mouth is very tight, but the flaws are too obvious. But she didn't continue to question him and took the token from Manager Thursday and left. Anyway, this shop is still here. There will be opportunities to gather information. Banha then pulled Guhan to leave. Thank you for your kindness, manager. I'll keep this token. Today I'll take 10 taels of silver. If I need more in the future, I'll come back. Saying this, she didn't forget to glance back meaningfully. Of course, if the manager is free when I come, we could chat a bit. After all, you want to get to know my Guhan, don't you? Manager Thursday heard this and broke out in sweat, swallowing hard. Madam is too terrifying, but it seems the sect leader has found an exceptional wife. Meanwhile, Banha happily pulled Guhan along, smiling and saying, finally, we have some money. Let's go, fool. I'll take you and Shinger for a hearty meal. What do you want to eat? Guhan immediately replied, I'll listen to wife. Meanwhile, at the Lin family home, Lin My Ni, daughter of Lin Si Shur, had gone to see old lady Lin, second aunt. My Ni heard you were injured, so I came to visit. Second aunt immediately smiled happily and said, you're here. What did you bring me? My Ni replied, freshly laid chicken eggs and some meat. Hearing you were injured, my niece specially brought these for you to nourish your health. Hearing this, second aunt was immediately delighted and praised. My knee is still the best. Much better than that beast, incomparably so. But my knee, having put down the basket of eggs, asked curiously, speaking of Sister Banha, it seems I haven't seen her today. Second aunt irritably said, she seems to have gone to town with that demon. I don't know where she gets so much money to go to town all the time. I find it very strange. That beast went up the mountain once, and it's like she's transformed. Suddenly not stupid anymore, and extremely stubborn. If it weren't for that demon protecting her, I would have torn her apart long ago. See if she dares to treat me like that again. Hearing this, my niece suddenly asked, is that demon so difficult to deal with? Mother, you mention him, and you seem terrified. Second aunt frowned and replied, if not, why would the villagers call him a demon? Suddenly, my niece covered her mouth and laughed, suggesting, seeing how he angered you, if he's a difficult demon to deal with, we can just drive them away, right? Second aunt was a bit puzzled. Do you have a way? My niece immediately approached maliciously and whispered in her ear, of course, we can do this. A few days later, Guhan returned from outside, carrying a chicken and calling out loudly, wife, I'm back. Seeing him, Banha hurriedly said, you're finally back. Quickly help me take care of Shinger. Hearing this, Guhan picked up Shinger and asked curiously, wife doesn't like Shinger. Banha took the chicken and reluctantly replied, no, I just feel a bit uncomfortable. In her heart, she thought, I was already afraid of children. How can I suddenly become good at taking care of them? At this point, Banha turned to Guhan and asked, why have you been going out so much lately? Guhan immediately said excitedly, I went to catch mountain chickens for wife. They're delicious. Banha approached him and wiped away Guhan's drool. Look at your greedy mouth. I think you're the one who wants to eat. Suddenly at this moment, there were shouts from outside. Lin Banha, come out here. Many people were seen approaching, led by a woman and several men. The woman then fiercely pointed at Guhan and shouted, that's right, it's him. I saw him last night. The chickens, ducks, and livestock that have gone missing in our village recently must have been stolen by him. Hearing this, Banha immediately darkened her face and asked sternly what's going on. But before she finished speaking, the village chief appeared and said he would explain clearly. The village chief then recounted everything. It's like this. Recently, many households in the village have lost a lot of livestock like chickens and ducks. And according to rumors, this is related to your man. Last night, someone saw with their own eyes him wandering around the village at midnight. So we've come to demand an explanation. Hearing this, Banha asked in return, what kind of rumors are these? The villagers immediately spoke up. I heard someone saw him standing in the middle of the road, lifting a goat with one hand, holding entrails in the other, covered in blood. I heard the same thing. I also heard he drinks human blood. It's terrifying. How could someone like that be in our village? At this point, they started pointing and shouting, wanting to drive Gu-han out of the village. Shinga was frightened by these loud noises to the point of crying. Seeing this, Banha hurriedly shouted, "Stop yelling. Can't you see the child is scared?" However, that person didn't care at all and continued shouting loudly, "Drive him out of the village. Drive him out of the village." At this moment, Gu-han spoke up, telling Banha to cover her ears. He then used his inner strength to shout loudly, "Shut up, all of you." The sound was so loud that it caused the villagers to faint or cover their ears in pain. Gu-han then went up to the village chief and warned, "Whether you believe it or not, this has nothing to do with me. If you don't want to die, take these people away now." Banha was very surprised by this and called out Gu-han's name. However, the young man immediately changed his expression back to a foolish smile and said, "Wife, look, I scared all the bad people away. Wife, praise me quickly." Hearing this, Banha sighed in relief and nodded. "You're the best. Let's go home." She then stood in front of Gu-han and spoke, "Village chief, Gu-han is truly not the person you're looking for. Check the scene of the thefts again, and guess who it might be." The woman in pink heard this and said, "You saying it's not him doesn't make it so. Did my goat just disappear by itself? Moreover, how do you explain the fact that I saw him last night?" Banha glanced at her and smiled. "That's not difficult to explain. Yesterday, he went to the mountain to catch chickens. That chicken is currently tied up outside our room." Next, she bent down and asked the woman in return, "Last night when Gu-han went out, it was late. Why weren't you sleeping at home, but instead outside to encounter Gu-han?" The woman immediately stammered, "I went out to pee." "Is that not allowed?" Hearing this, Banha mischievously asked further, "Oh, so did you see with your own eyes Gu-han running into your goat pen to steal goats?" The woman hurriedly said in panic, "What if I didn't see it? Last night, I only saw him. Could it have been someone else?" Banha immediately smirked. "So only you saw Gu-han, right? That means you have no witnesses. Secondly, you have no evidence, yet you came to demand your goat back. Who gave you the guts to come here and falsely accuse us?" Hearing this, the woman was at a loss for words and quickly turned to second aunt. "That's right, who says I don't have a witness. Wu Lang's mother, come here." Seeing second aunt about to leave, the woman immediately went to pull her back. "Quickly, tell them about the demon going out at midnight. You were the one who told me about it." Second aunt heard this and stammered, unable to speak. Seeing this scene, Banha couldn't help but laugh. "I was wondering where such rumors came from. So it was you." She then turned to the village chief. "Let's do this, village chief. I'll help you find the real thief. But I have one condition. After this is over, I want to separate households in front of everyone." A moment later, Banha's parents couldn't help but speak up and ask her, "Banha, are you serious about what you said today? Do you really intend to separate households?" Banha smiled and nodded, "Of course. Do you have any thoughts, mother?" Banha's mother looked worried and said, "I'm afraid that after we separate, we won't have money to build a new house right away. At that time, it might be better to stay here and live under second aunt's gaze." Banha immediately took her hand and gently comforted her. "Mother, you don't need to worry about that. Earlier, Gu-han told me to pawn a token of his. The money from that is enough for us to buy land and build a house. You just need to choose a place you like." Her father, hearing this, was surprised and asked, "Did Gu-han really tell you to pawn it?" Banha smiled and replied, "Yes, he did tell me to do so. Don't worry, father. I won't take advantage of him just because he's foolish." Her father heard this and smiled, nodding. "That's good. I think Gu-han isn't really foolish. He has his own ideas about many things." In Banha's mind, several ambiguous images of Gu-han immediately appeared. She couldn't help but think wearily, "That fool has too many ideas." Suddenly reminded of Gu-han, Banha asked, "That's right, father, I've always wanted to ask. When did Gu-han come to our village?" Her father thought for a moment before saying, "Probably 3 months ago. A hunter, while going up the mountain, was called by Gu-han asking for directions. At that time, he was very normal, just a bit cold. A few days later, when we saw him again, he had turned into the foolish state he is now. But many people in the village saw him fighting wolves barehanded, so everyone called him a demon. Since then, no one dared to provoke him." After hearing this, Banha pondered, resting her chin on her hand. "So that's how it is. Indeed, Gu-han came from somewhere else. It seems I should find an opportunity to go to that pawn shop and investigate a bit. She then stood up, preparing to leave. All right, parents, think about where we should build the house. Stepping out of the door, Banha smiled and continued, Guhan, and I will go catch that thief. Please take care of Shinger for us. Her mother heard this and happily agreed. The scene changes to the house of the woman in pink from earlier. She was standing with her arms crossed, watching Banha and Guhan examine her house. Look all you want. Let's see what you can find. The village chief is really strange. He actually agreed to let you investigate. It's like the thief crying, "Stop thief." Hearing this old woman's incessant nagging, Banha's blood boiled and she shouted, "Enough. If you're so free, go back to your room and sleep. Don't stand here talking nonsense. It's annoying." However, this old woman was still very stubborn. So what if I talk too much? Can't I talk in my own house? Seeing this, Banha immediately smirked. You won't go back, right? At this point, she calmly told Guhan to throw her onto the roof. So right after that, the woman was given a free flight ticket. Banha then laughed and said, if you like watching so much, stay up there and see how we find the thief. Meanwhile, the woman was in tears, screaming, let me down. Lean Banha, come back here and let me down. Banha didn't care at all and went inside the pen to inspect. Just now, looking at the entrance of the goat pen, there were no signs of forced entry. How did that thief steal the goats? Suddenly, Banha discovered bloodstains on the ground and pushed aside the dry grass. Guhan saw this and asked curiously, what is wife looking for? Hearing this, Guhan went over and cleared away all the grass, revealing a long bloodstain. Is this what wife is looking for? Banha was amazed and asked, how did you discover that? Guhan hugged her and replied, of course I could smell it. I smelled it as soon as we came in. Banha laughed and rubbed his nose, saying, that impressive. What else can you smell? Guhan pulled her close and replied suggestively, I can also smell the fragrance on wife's body. Banha blushed and quickly pushed him away. All right, let me take a look over there. She then bent down to examine the bloodstains. Very quickly, she understood the problem. Banha then smiled meaningfully and instructed, Guhan, tell the village chief to bring some strong young men here. Tell them I've found the culprit. On the evening a few days later, inside the livestock pen was still very peaceful. Outside, several men were hiding and observing. However, they had lost their patience after 3 days. How much longer do we have to wait? Surely they're not coming, right? The village chief couldn't help but speak up. Banha, is this idea of yours going to work? Banha, enjoying Guhan's massage, heard this and calmly said, village chief, don't worry. I guarantee we can catch him. Just then, suddenly there was a commotion outside. Banha left, perfect timing. You hear that? Didn't they just arrive? Very quickly, from inside the pen, the sound of chickens in distress could be heard. Hearing this, everyone quickly rushed to the pen. Banha approached vid a lamp. After seeing clearly, everyone was shocked. Is this really the thief? They saw a snow wolf trapped inside the pen, growling. Banha stepped forward and said, that's right. It stole the chickens, ducks, and livestock in the village. The village chief asked curiously, how did you discover this? Banha explained, that day, Guhan and I saw bloodstains in the goat pen. The blood trail led to that dog hole over there. Moreover, I found a white hare nearby, so I guessed it was this snow wolf that stole the sheep. Then it left, afraid that Aunt Tong wouldn't notice that her goat pen had such a big hole. So the wolf took advantage of this opportunity to sneak in. It had just stolen a goat. It probably wouldn't come back, so I told everyone to check if their fences were damaged. At night, also check this only dog hole. But I couldn't determine when the snow wolf would come, so I troubled you brothers to wait for a few nights. I'm really sorry. The men heard this and quickly waved their hands. It's not your fault at all. We wrongly blamed the demon brother. At this point, Banha turned to the village chief. Now that we've caught the thief, I hope the village chief remembers his promise to me. The village chief stroked his beard and said contentedly, of course. Early tomorrow morning, I'll come to witness for you. Banha happily thanked him. Then I'll trouble the village chief. However, the village chief quickly said, Banha, you're being too polite. The next day, Second Aunt's extremely loud voice rang out at Banha's house. I don't agree. She then continued irritably, why can you decide to separate households just like that? Do you have the right to decide about this house? Or do I have the right to decide? Hearing this, the village chief immediately frowned, showing disapproval. Mother Wen Liang, what you're saying is not right. That day when Banha proposed to separate households, you agreed in front of everyone. How can you go back on your word now? Second Aunt heard this and said in a low voice, How was I to know she'd really find the thief? The village chief saw this and sighed exasperatedly, saying, in short, you've already agreed. If you go back on your word today, who in the village will trust you in the future? Banha spoke up at this moment. Village chief, don't rush. Let's give Second Ant some time to think. I have something to ask the village chief. I wonder if that piece of land near the stream west of the village is still unclaimed. Is that right? The village chief hesitated before replying, yes, it's unclaimed. Don't tell me you want to buy it, but it's too close to the stream, so it's not very convenient. However, Banha immediately said, as long as it's unclaimed, that's fine. I'll figure out the money issue. Please prepare the contract, village chief. I'll come to get it in 5 days. The village chief heard this and agreed. However, Second Ant immediately shouted in criticism, where did you get so much money? Tell me, did you sell things from the house behind my back? Banha calmly rested her chin on her hand and smiled. I did sell something, but not things from the house. You should know that jade pendant of mine is white jade. It's worth a lot. Hearing this, Second Ant was furious and thought to herself, I didn't expect it to be white jade. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have returned it to her. However, thinking of this, she suddenly startled, realizing something. So she turned to Banha and asked, wait, you're buying that land to build a house? Banha calmly replied, what if I am? Second Ant heard this and immediately started calculating. It seems after separating households, this little bee's family wants to move out. And if they move out, there's an 80 to 90% chance they won't come back. If so, then their old house. Thinking of this, Second Ant looked pleased. So she waved her hand and said with a smile, ahem, I've thought about it. If Banha wants to separate households, then let's do it. I hope the village chief can help witness this. After everything was settled, Wan Bao suddenly appeared, startling Banha. I told you that even if others can't see you, you should behave yourself. Don't suddenly appear and scare me. Wan Bao scratched his head embarrassedly. I was in a hurry. Banha, as if guessing Wan Bao's intention, immediately spoke up, go ahead. Where do I have to go to deliver a baby this time? Wan Bao replied sheepishly, this time it's not a delivery mission, but a mission to increase affection. The system requires that your favorability with Lean Tai Tai must increase to the maximum within a week. As soon as Banha heard this, her soul seemed to leave her body. She couldn't help but curse. After a moment of shock, Banha wiggled her ear and said, I think my ears must be having problems today. I must have misheard. Seeing this, Wan Bao shouted, don't try to avoid it. You didn't miss here. Banha was furious and quickly grabbed Wan Bao, shaking him hard. What kind of joke is this? You know very well what her character is like. Increasing favorability with her. I think you're crazy. Wan Bao, being shaken dizzy, hurriedly said, wait, stop shaking me. He then shouted, I have a way to avoid this mission. Hearing this, Banha asked, what way? Wan Bao said seriously, die once. Banha, hearing this, couldn't help but boil with anger and grabbed Wan Bao's head. Gritting her teeth, are you playing with me? Wan Bao immediately broke out in sweat and explained, there's no other way. This is a mission set by the system. If you don't accept it, you have to die once to escape it. Then you could do a new mission. Hearing this, Banha was surprised and released Wan Bao, asking again, you mean after I die, I can still come back to life? Wan Bao replied, of course. Your overall mission is to deliver 10,000 babies. At the same time, have 10 children with Guhan. Wan Bao then tearfully and pitifully continued, as long as it doesn't affect these 2 missions, you can skip all other missions. But you have to accept the system's punishment. The punishment is dying once. Moreover, this is very good, you know? In other words, if you're in danger, you just need to give up one important current mission and accept one punishment. Then you can continue living. Wan Bao advised, this is a golden finger, you know? It's like a protective charm. Banha heard this and directly walked away, saying, all right, let's go quickly. Wan Bao asked confusedly, where to? Banha seriously said, to die. After finding a suitable place, Wan Bao asked one last time, are you ready? Banha immediately told him to stop wasting words and open the mission panel. Finally, she unhesitatingly pressed abandon mission. The system immediately reminded her, confirm abandoning mission. Starting punishment process. This will hurt a lot. Try to endure it. So after that, from inside the cave, Banha's piercing scream could be heard. Guhan, passing by coincidentally, heard it. So the young man hurriedly went inside to check. He saw Banha had been electrocuted to the point of burning and fallen down. Seeing this, Guhan immediately ran to support Banha, calling out worriedly. In his heart, he thought, what exactly did she do? Why is she injured like this? Guhan then put his hand to Banha's nose to check. However, she was no longer breathing. Guhan was shocked. She's dead. But then Guhan discovered something wasn't right, so he hurriedly picked Banha up. There must be something wrong somewhere. How could she possibly die? Thinking this, Guhan then carried Banha and ran. If I take her to town now and wait for a horse carriage to be ready to go to Jiao Van Valley, it would take too much time. I'll have to use my lightness skill to run to Iron Divine Doctor as fast as possible. However, while Guhan was carrying Banha, her hand suddenly moved. Seeing this, Guhan was startled and quickly stopped. After checking again, he was extremely surprised. Her breathing has recovered. Not only that, the wounds on her body were gradually healing. At this moment, Guhan suddenly remembered things from before. Back then, he often saw her talking to the air. Although he had many doubts, because he was pretending to be foolish, he didn't expose it. But strange events kept happening more and more. Moreover, sometimes objects would suddenly appear out of thin air. And now, Guhan was extremely shocked by what he had witnessed. He then lightly kissed Banha's forehead and thought, my wife, what kind of person are you really? That night at the Lean family home, Banha, after a period of unconsciousness, finally woke up. This is my home. But wasn't I in the mountain cave? Why am I here? Just then, her mother came in carrying a bowl of porridge and said, you're finally awake. If you hadn't woken up, Guhan would have been scared to death. Banha saw this and asked mother, how did I get back here? Her mother replied, at noon, Guhan went up the mountain to catch rabbits. He found you unconscious in the cave and quickly brought you back. Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere now? Banha rubbed her head and replied, no, I went up the mountain to see how it was. I didn't expect to faint. She then asked, where's Guhan? Her mother smiled and replied, after bringing you back, he hurriedly went to catch mountain chickens to nourish you. He's probably still in the mountains now. At the same time, in the deep forest in the mountains, Guhan was currently there. Suddenly, rustling sounds were heard around him. Right after that, two people in black cloaks suddenly appeared and knelt down, saying greetings to the master. Your servants arrived late. Please punish us. Guhan immediately said coldly, let's leave the punishment for later. Help me investigate someone. Her name is Lean Banha. Moreover, I want to know everything about her from birth until now. The more detailed, the better. Sometime later, the weather had become very cold. Snow covered the entire area in white. Banha stepped outside and rubbed her hands, sighing. I didn't expect snow to fall before the new year. Looks like we'll have a good harvest this year. Hearing this, Guhan approached and took Banha's hand. No matter how beautiful the snow is, it's not as beautiful as wife. He held her hand and blew on it, continuing, it's getting colder, yet wife keeps wanting to go out. Banha laughed and replied, I'm going to deliver babies for people. Besides, didn't you go to check on our house? How is it? Can it be finished by the new year? Hearing this, Guhan acted pitiful and hugged Banha. Wife only cares about the house, not about me at all. Bon Holef, how do you want me to care about you? Guhan immediately put on a mischievous tone and smiled. I want wife to kiss me. Being in a good mood, Banha indulged him and kissed Guhan's cheek. All right, here's a kiss. However, Guhan quickly used his ultimate move, staring with puppy eyes and saying softly, wife, this is just perfunctory. Banha asked, then tell me what's not perfunctory. Hearing this, Guhan immediately moved in to kiss Banha's lips. Of course it should be like this. After a while, they separated. Guhan happily said, wife is so sweet. Meanwhile, Banha was very embarrassed and shouted, sweet your head. We're at the gate. She then pushed the young man away and ran off. I'm going to deliver a baby. I'll be back soon. If you have time, stop by the new house. I want to move there before the new year. Guhan nodded and said he understood. He then waved, telling her to be careful. But Banha felt a bit sad inside. I thought he would cling to me and insist on coming along. Why do I feel a bit disappointed? After Banha left, Guhan turned and stomped his foot once. He easily jumped onto the roof. Guhan glanced at the young man up there and asked coldly, have you seen enough? The young man saw this and stammered in fear, calling out, Lord. Guhan asked coldly, why are you here? Didn't I tell you to go do your work? The young man immediately respectfully replied, "Reporting to my lord, this morning Cloud Valley sent a message. Manager Thursday didn't dare delay, so he asked your servant to return for a trip." At this point, the young man hesitated, not daring to continue. Seeing this, Guhan growled for him to speak quickly. The young man didn't dare hide anymore and began to speak. "The elders want my lord to marry Tian Shui City, so they specially issued a secret order telling me to escort my lord back." As soon as he finished speaking, the young man panicked when he sensed the killing intent emanating from Guhan. "Oh no, the lord is really angry. It's all because I lost to Xiao Lingdan this morning. I knew whoever delivered this news to the lord would die." Guhan now smirked coldly. "I knew those old men wouldn't stay put," he said, then jumped down and told the young man to follow him. Next, Guhan took out a package and handed it to the young man. "Tell Manager Thursday to arrange these things to give to those old men. Tell them to mind their own business after they finish eating these." The young man in yellow immediately asked curiously, "What's in here, my lord?" Guhan immediately smiled brightly and said, "Cow dung." The young man in yellow, hearing this, was so shocked his face turned pale. "Damn it, I held it with my bare hands." The young man then burst into tears and hurriedly ran off. "I'll give it to Manager Thursday right away." Seeing this, Guhan smiled and thought to himself, "Now I can have some peace for a while." The scene changes to Banha. She had just finished delivering a baby. A man was very grateful and gave her a bag of money. "Thank you so much, Sister Lean." Banha smiled and replied, "Brother Lee, you're too kind. Seeing me off here is enough. You should go home." Hearing this, the man nodded. Banha then quickly left. In her mind, she was thinking, "I knew the system's missions wouldn't be easy to complete, but I didn't expect it to take so much time. I wonder what the fool is doing now. It's strange, it's only been a day, and I already miss him a bit." Suddenly, from behind came a voice calling wife. Guhan then appeared out of nowhere and ran to Banha. "Wife, I'll come to pick you up. Are you happy?" Banha blushed and replied, "A little bit." Seeing Guhan's surprised look, Banha embarrassedly shouted, "What's with that expression? Can't I be happy?" Hearing this, Guhan quickly took Banha's hand. Then he happily pulled her along. "Of course you can. It's good that wife is happy. Let's go home." A while later, the two arrived home. "Mother, we're back." Hearing this, her mother inside quickly said, "Banha, you're back. Come see who's here." A pregnant woman smiled happily and spoke. "Banha, long time no see." Banha saw her and was very surprised, calling out sister. Banha then asked, "Why are you here?" Her sister smiled and replied, "The new year is coming. I wanted to bring some gifts for you and your parents." Her sister then softly asked, "Oh, there's a lantern festival in town tonight. I want us sisters to go for a walk there. What do you think?" Banha heard this and was a bit surprised. The scene changes to evening. Banha and her sister were now walking together to see the lantern festival. Banha thought excitedly to herself, "I didn't expect the town to have such an event. Although I've seen it on TV before, seeing it in reality is truly beautiful. If Shunger wasn't too young to be in crowded places, I would have brought the fool along. I wonder if he's angry about it." Suddenly seeing her sister staring at her, Banha blushed and asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" In her heart, she thought, "Oh no, I must have been too excited." However, her sister laughed and said, "It's nothing. I'm just happy to see Banha so cheerful. In the past, no matter how father and mother called, you always seemed to lock yourself away." Saying this, her sister reached out to caress Banha's cheek. "Although you've had misfortunes, seeing Banha living happily now puts me at ease." Hearing this, Banha felt very warm. This was the feeling of having family. She didn't expect that after transmigrating, she could finally experience this feeling. Her sister then took Banha's hand and reminded her, "It's more crowded ahead. Be careful." But before she finished speaking, a shout came from somewhere. "They're giving out money over there. Everyone hurry and grab some." People then rushed over in droves. Banha and her sister were separated in the crowd. Seeing her sister being swept into the crowd, Banha shouted worriedly, "Sister, try your best to get out of the crowd. Brother-in-law, and I will come find you right away." Saying this, she turned to the man beside her. "Brother-in-law, you go left, I'll go right. We'll follow the crowd to find my sister. We must hurry. I'm worried about the baby in her belly." Hearing this, the man immediately nodded in agreement. So right after that, the two of them immediately followed the plan and squeezed into the crowd ahead. Banha searched hurriedly while praying, "God protect my sister. Don't let anything happen to her." Just then, a sudden scream rang out, startling Banha. She immediately recognized it as her sister's voice. In a small alley, Banha's sister was being harassed by a man. At this moment, Banha appeared and shouted loudly, telling the man to release her sister immediately. However, when he saw Banha's appearance, the man looked very interested. "Oh, what lucky day is this? Beautiful women keep coming one after another." Banha had lost her patience and said through gritted teeth, "I'll say it one more time. Let my sister go." The man heard this and released his grip. "All right then, if you're so proactive, then come play with me." As he finished speaking, he slowly approached Banha. At this moment, Banha remembered something from before. Back then, because she was free, she had accessed the Wan Bao system to find some self-defense techniques. Back to the present, Banha quickly stepped back, then grabbed the man's hand and pulled him forward. Finally, she retracted her arm and delivered a blow to his face. Not stopping there, Banha quickly raised her knee and gave the man a free ticket to become a eunuch. After finishing, seeing the man groaning in pain, Banha coldly thought to herself, "This seems good. I can't always hope for someone to appear in time to save me." Banha then hurriedly ran to her sister. Helping her up, Banha asked worriedly, "Sister, how are you?" However, Wan Bao appeared and said, "Not good. Your sister is in shock. She might go into premature labor." Banha was startled at the mention of premature labor. But while Banha was still worried and didn't know what to do, suddenly a mysterious person appeared and asked, "Do you need any help?" Banha turned around and was surprised to see that person. A while later, in a row of houses, the cry of a baby could be heard. Banha's brother-in-law saw her come out and hurriedly asked, "Banha, how is she?" Hearing this, Banha replied, "Sister is fine. But due to premature labor and exhaustion, she and the baby have both fallen asleep." Her brother-in-law hesitantly asked, "Can I go in to see them?" Banha repeated, "Yes, but be careful not to wake them up." Her brother-in-law immediately nodded, saying he understood. At this time, two people approached. "Has the baby been born?" This person was none other than Miss Zhou, Xing'er's birth mother. Banha quickly said, "Thank you so much for today. If I hadn't met you at the right time, I wouldn't have known what to do." Miss Zhou replied, "Perhaps this is fate." Right after that, Banha approached and whispered in Miss Zhou's ear, "The inn we're staying at is right in front of you. Do you want to visit your child?" Hearing this, Miss Zhou excitedly grabbed Banha's hand. "Can I see my child?" Banha nodded, of course. However, looking outside, Miss Zhou said, "Well, can I come find you tomorrow? It's dark now. If I don't return soon, I'm afraid my father will come looking for me." Banha smiled and agreed. "All right, I'll wait for you at the inn at noon tomorrow." The next morning at the inn, Banha waited for a long time, but didn't see Miss Zhou arrive, which she found very strange. "Didn't we agree she'd come at noon? Why can't I see her anywhere?" Suddenly, a sound rang out. A handsome young man dressed elegantly approached. The top scholar has returned home. People on both sides of the road eagerly gathered to watch. The gong beater continued to shout loudly. This year's top scholar, Gu Lang, in his brocade robe, returns to the village. Those unrelated make way. Banha saw this scene and was a bit curious. So this is an ancient parade. It's really lively. At the same time, people were buzzing with discussion. I didn't expect this year's top scholar to be so young. How impressive. And that's not all. I heard that as soon as this scholar arrived in the capital, he caught the eye of the princess. She's been accompanying him the entire journey back home. At this point, a villager pointed to a carriage traveling behind. "Do you see that carriage? The person inside is Princess Qingdao." Hearing this, Banha became very curious and wanted to see what an ancient princess looked like. However, at this moment, she suddenly startled. She saw Ms. Zhou standing in front of her. Seeing her watching the top scholar with tears in her eyes, Banha immediately deduced, this isn't one of those cliché copyright plots that often appear on TV, is it? The kind where the man betrays the woman's love. Banha then rubbed her forehead and walked away. "I can't handle this. Let's pretend I didn't see anything." A while later, Miss Zhou came to visit Xing'er. Holding the baby in her arms, she said happily, "Is this Xing'er? Thank you for giving her such a nice name." Banha replied, "Miss Zhou, you're too kind." But in her mind, she was thinking, luckily, my brother's name works for both boys and girls. Who knew he'd turn into a girl here? At this time, a maid took out a bag and placed it on the table. Miss Zhou said, "These are some things I made for Xing'er. Please accept them. After today, I'm afraid I won't be able to see her again. Banha heard this and asked in surprise, "What do you mean by that?" Looking at the baby, Miss Zhou said sadly, "Father has arranged a marriage for me. In a while, I'll have to get married. My future husband lives very far from here. I'm afraid it won't be convenient to come back in the future." Hearing this, Banha was surprised and hurriedly asked about the person from earlier, which startled Miss Zhou. Realizing her slip, Banha quickly covered her mouth. "Oh no, didn't I say I'd ignore it? Why am I still talking about it?" Seeing this, Miss Zhou smiled gently and said, "You saw it, didn't you? But you don't need to worry about it. It's just me being sentimental on my own." The maid beside her heard this and hurriedly said, "Miss, you don't need to lower yourself. It's clearly that Gu Lang who's no good." However, Miss Zhou immediately cut her off, saying, "Enough." She then said in a low voice, "Xiao Yu, everything is in the past. Don't mention it again." Seeing Miss Zhou like this, Banha changed the subject and reached for the box. "I'll accept the things inside. When Xinger grows up, I'll tell her these are things her birth mother prepared. In the future, every new year, I'll bring Xinger to town for a visit." However, Miss Zhou told Banha she didn't need to do that. But Banha was still very determined and said, "If you happen to visit your relatives, please come see her." Hearing this, Miss Zhou was moved and hugged Xinger tightly, thanking Banha. That night, Banha was lying on the bed playing with Xinger, thinking, "It's so late, I wonder where the fool has run off to." He said goodbye early in the morning and ran out. Surely he's not meeting someone, is he? Just then, the door opened and Guhan returned. Banha heard the noise and sat up. But before she could speak, Guhan came over and took her hand. He then hugged her and said softly, "Wife, truly become mine." Hearing these words from Guhan, Banha was shocked. She then shyly tried to avoid him. "What are you saying?" In her mind, she thought, "Is he saying what I think he's saying?" However, Guhan had already untied Banha's belt. Then he pushed her down onto the bed. "You know what I mean? I want to have you." Banha heard this and immediately pushed Guhan away. "Wait, calm down." Guhan was startled by Banha's action. "She really rejected me." Earlier, Guhan had received a letter. The content inside stated, "This old man has learned of the Lord's situation from Master Thursday. Regarding the matter of the Lord deciding to marry a farmer's daughter as his wife, this old man feels very regretful. From what this old man knows, that woman was not originally the Lord's. Even the child is adopted. Even if the Lord is willing to pay any price, does this woman truly love the Lord, or is it just one-sided on the Lord's part? This old man hopes the Lord will think carefully before deciding on a wife. Avoid regretting it for life." Guhan feared, could that old man be right? Wife doesn't like me at all. However, Guhan couldn't accept this. He immediately leaned down to kiss Banha. No, you must be mine." But Banha angrily sat up and punched Guhan on the head. "I told you to calm down." She then hugged Xinger and shouted, "Can't you hear Xinger crying?" Saying this, she worriedly tried to comfort Xinger. However, having never comforted a child before, she was a bit awkward. So Banha handed Xinger to Guhan, saying, "If you feel guilty, comfort Xinger first. Then we'll talk things through clearly." After Xinger fell asleep, Ben Hui called Guhan to sit beside her. She then patted his head and asked, "What was that about earlier? Did someone say something to you?" Guhan hesitantly asked, "Wife, do you like me?" This question confused Banha. "Why are you asking that?" Guhan turned his face away and said, "Other wives let their husbands embrace them, but wife doesn't allow it. They said wife doesn't like me, but you're just deceiving me." Banha was a bit surprised to hear this. Just because of this, at this point, she cupped Guhan's face and turned it towards her. Looking straight at him, Banha immediately asked, "You said you want to possess me. Is that true? Even if in the future, you can't touch other women. I'm very petty. I won't accept you having someone else. So if you really have me, then in this life, you can only be mine. Moreover, I don't know when you'll come to your senses, but I don't want you to regret it." Guhan took Banha's hands. "Why do you think I'll regret it?" He then moved closer and said, "Since I knew you were my wife, I've never felt regret." Banha asked, "Not in the future either?" Guhan affirmed, "Not in the future either." Hearing this, Banha reached out and embraced Guhan. "All right, if you say so, then I'll believe you for now." After saying this, she kissed his cheek. Then she said softly, "If you want to have me, then come. I hope after tonight, you'll keep your word." Hearing this, Guhan joyfully kissed Banha. Then he seriously said, Thank you. I will definitely cherish you. However, just as he was saying this, Gu-han suddenly fainted, making Ban-ha very worried. Wan Bao suddenly appeared and said, "Don't worry. I made him faint." Ban-ha asked why. Wan Bao explained, "Because the key mission of having 10 children has been activated." Ban-ha was very confused about the key mission. Wan Bao immediately explained, "The mission to have 10 children can't be skipped. So each key mission is closely related to you or an important child. Just now, Shinger's key mission has begun. You must go to the neighboring village to save a pregnant woman." Ban-ha asked doubtfully, "Is it that urgent? What if I can't complete it?" Wan Bao immediately darkened his face and replied, "Then you and Shinger will die instantly." A moment later in the neighboring village, Ban-ha called out to Wan Bao. Seeing the scene of people chaotically drinking in front of her, Ban-ha asked Wan Bao, "Is this the neighboring village you mentioned?" Wan Bao replied, "According to the location displayed by the mission, yes it is." Ban-ha was speechless. "Enough! Don't say anything more. Let me be quiet for a moment." Suddenly, the man next to her also called out to Ban-ha, "Miss, are you angry about something? I really didn't expect that when they caught me, you would happen to pass by, so you were caught up in this too. I'm so sorry." Hearing this, Ban-ha frowned and observed this man, thinking to herself, looking at the calluses on his hands, they're probably from holding a sword for many years. This person is likely not an ordinary rich man's son. Could he have intentionally allowed himself to be caught? Thinking this, she didn't want to get involved and turn away. "You're overthinking it. The people who brought me here are mountain bandits. If I'm angry, it's only at them." The man smiled and said, "Mrs. So understanding, it's really..." But before he could finish speaking, someone rushed in panicking and shouted, "Not good, not good. The camp leader's wife is about to give birth." Hearing this, a scarred man also stood up in panic. Seeing this person urgently preparing to find a midwife, Ban-ha quickly said, "I'm a midwife. I know how to deliver babies." After saying this, she thought to herself, "Great, I can finally do the mission. My hands are getting numb." The camp leader heard Ban-ha's words and approached her coldly, saying, "Little girl, do you know what you're saying? If you dare lie, I'll butcher you." However, Ban-ha wasn't afraid and firmly said loudly, "I'm not lying. If you don't want anything to happen to your wife, then quickly untie me." The camp leader heard this and was shocked. But very quickly after that, they untied Ban-ha and respectfully bowed, shouting loudly, "We've troubled you. Please protect the mother and child's safety." Ban-ha saw this and waved her hand as she went inside. I know. Quickly prepare hot water for me. Before I'm finished, don't come in, understand?" 3 hours later, the cry of a baby was heard. Ban-ha carried the baby and smiled, announcing, "Congratulations, madam. It's a boy." But before she could finish speaking, the old camp leader hurriedly opened the door and rushed in. "Is the baby all right?" One unnecessary move. The camp leader's wife, boiling with anger, threw a pillow straight at his face, shouting, "Why are you yelling like that? Are you trying to wake the baby?" Seeing this, Ban-ha couldn't help but sigh. "You two are both very noisy." So while the camp leader and his wife surrounded the baby, Ban-ha fell into thought. To be honest, this delivery was very smooth. Could the key mission really be this simple? Suddenly, Ban-ha was startled when she saw a strange painting hanging on the wall. So she spoke up and asked the camp leader couple, "May I ask about this flag? The drawing on it looks very familiar." The camp leader was startled hearing this. "Where have you seen this drawing before?" Ban-ha replied, "On my husband's token." The camp leader's wife was shocked at the mention of a token. Meanwhile, the camp leader, holding the baby, tensely said, "It seems your husband's background is not small." He then seriously said, "This symbol is the symbol of the Mi-zong sect in Cloud Valley. As Cloud Valley has its own people and army, and many highly skilled martial artists, its power is so great that even the emperor dares not touch it. And the Mi-zong sect holds the highest position in Cloud Valley." He then waved his hand and said, "If your husband is from the Mi-zong sect, I'll have my brothers escort you down the mountain later. I don't want to get into any trouble." Hearing this, Ban-ha could only force a smile. "I didn't expect even mountain bandits to fear this Mi-zong sect. However, I hope Gu-han isn't some big figure in the Mi-zong sect." On the other side, Gu-han was holding Shunga when a subordinate came to report. "Sect leader, Manager Thursday has sent an urgent letter. He hopes you'll read it." Hearing this, Gu-han told him to hand over the letter. However, as soon as he finished reading, his expression became very unpleasant. Gu-han then immediately crumpled the letter. Those old men are getting bolder and bolder. At this point, he waved his hand and ordered Manager Thursday to prepare horses. "I must return to Cloud Valley immediately." The young subordinate heard this and went to do so. At the same time, Banha was on her way back. I didn't expect them to release me. Going down the mountain at night is really inconvenient. Wan Bao said, when we left, there were many people ambushing around the camp. Will they attack you? Banha immediately said no. Judging by their attire, they're probably imperial soldiers. They're probably the people of that guy pretending to be a rich young master captured by the bandits. They'll likely wipe out those bandits today, so we should get down the mountain as soon as possible. Suddenly, Banha saw in the pavilion ahead a woman lying on the table. Banha was confused. It's very late. Why would a woman be lying here? But when she saw the face clearly, Banha was immediately startled. She saw it was Miss Zhou, but she had stopped breathing. Her eyes were watery, and black blood was coming from her mouth. Banha couldn't believe her eyes. Miss Zhou, how could you? Wan Bao quickly said, Miss Zhou's body has been discovered. Sheng'er's mission has been activated. You must solve and find out the truth about the cause of Miss Zhou's death. Item obtained, autopsy kit. Banha frowned and asked, what do you mean? Did you know Miss Zhou would die tonight? Wan Bao calmly replied, of course. After all, this is an important key point in the mission. Banha couldn't help but question him. Just to complete the key mission, even if it costs someone's life, you don't care, do you? Wan Bao immediately explained nervously, but she was meant to die. Even we can't arbitrarily interfere with what's predetermined to happen. Banha helplessly rubbed her forehead. He doesn't understand my point. I'm really foolish, trying to argue with the system. She then took off her coat. I never thought I'd return to my old profession one day. Next, Banha gently lowered Miss Zhou's body. Miss Zhou, I'm sorry for this. After saying this, she asked Wan Bao to give her the kit. After a while, Banha finally finished examining Miss Zhou's body. Suddenly, a man on horseback arrived, shouting, who's in the pavilion? It was the man from before. Recognizing Banha, hi Dishmontet. So it's you, miss? I just finished dealing with the bandits when I heard from the soldiers that they'd seen you. I was worried about you. Suddenly, Banha shouted loudly, telling the young man not to come closer. She then pointed at Miss Zhou's body and said, a murder has occurred here. Don't disturb the crime scene. The young man, hearing this, couldn't hide his shock. Seeing this, Banha then transformed into Conan and analyzed. Based on the wounds and the body's rigidity, she was likely murdered, dying about 2 hours ago. There are strangulation marks on both the front and back of her neck. Blood is flowing from her 7 orifices. There's also a wine cup on the table. I think she may have been forced to drink poison wine. Additionally, I found a jade pendant and another wine cup nearby. Judging by the style of the jade pendant, it's likely something a man would carry. The culprit is probably someone she knew. At this point, Banha dusted off her hands. That's all I know. You can arrest people now. The young man was surprised. Aren't you a midwife? How do you know about autopsies? Banha evaded, saying just a hobby. In her mind, she thought, even if I told him my profession is forensic pathologist, he probably wouldn't believe me. She then put her coat back on and turned to leave. Please inform the authorities about this matter. I have other business, so I'll take my leave. The young man and Wan Bao, seeing this, were startled and shocked. So the young man hurriedly grabbed Banha's hand, saying, wait. The young man said, you're the first to discover the scene. Anyway, you should come with me to the magistrate's office. Wan Bao added, you've only done the autopsy. You haven't found the killer yet. Are you just going to leave like this? However, Banha quickly pulled her hand away. In her heart, she said, shut up, Wan Bao. But outwardly she smiled and said, I trust you can handle this matter well. My child is still young. I'm not comfortable leaving her alone at home, so I must go first. When you find the killer, if you need me to confront them in court, I'll come then. The young man heard this and had to agree, but still asked, all right, what's your name? Where do you live? Banha replied as she walked, Lean Banha, staying at Zhang's Inn in Yaoantown. Wan Bao eagerly followed, asking, are you really leaving? What about the killer? Aren't you going to find the killer? Banha calmly replied, do I still need to find them? She smirked and continued nonchalantly, you can make Miss Zhou run out to have a drink with him on such a cold winter night. Besides Sheng'er's birth father, that newly crowned top scholar Gu Lang, who else could it be? Saying this, Banha turned to Wan Bao and asked, well, can this be considered completing the mission? Wan Bao was speechless. Seeing this, Banha immediately said mischievously, you said finding the killer was enough. You can't expect me to arrest them too, right? Unable to argue, the mission panel appeared. Wan Bao said, fine, consider it completed. Banha stretched happily and headed home. Great, let's go home then. I wonder if Guhan is anxious from waiting so long. Wan Bao helplessly agreed. Why do I feel like I'm at a disadvantage here? A while later, After returning home, hearing the shocking news, Banha couldn't help but shout loudly what. Guhan took Shinger and ran away. Sister Hatam, hearing this, hurriedly said, "What nonsense are you talking about? I told you Guhan had some business and had to return home for a while. He was worried about Shinger, so he took her along." As soon as she finished, her brother-in-law took out a letter and handed it to Banha. "This is the letter Guhan left and asked me to give you before he left." Taking the letter, Banha said, "Thank you, sister and brother-in-law. I'll return to my room now." Back in her room, Banha quickly closed the door. She walked to the table, sat down, and opened the letter. Banha thought he wants to go home. Moreover, he knows how to write a letter to me. Could it be that his memory has suddenly... The window behind Banha suddenly opened. She immediately turned around startled and shouted, "Who's there?" Right after that, a girl in a black cloak appeared and knelt before Banha. Ling Dan pays respects to Madam. Hearing this, Banha asked doubtfully, "Madam, are you sure you didn't come to the wrong room?" The girl immediately smiled and lowered her hood. Ling Dan is not mistaken. Ling Dan was ordered by the master to protect Madam. Banha heard this and rubbed her head, asking, "Wait, the master you're talking about isn't Guhan, is it?" Ling Dan respectfully replied, "Correct. The master wrote to Madam about this in his letter, I believe." Banha heard this and opened the letter, saying, "I haven't read the letter yet. You stand up and sit beside me. Let me read the letter first, then I'll ask you questions." Ling Dan obediently agreed. Right after, Banha began to read the letter. Inside it wrote, "Banha, the day you left, I received a letter from home. These days, matters at home are complicated. Plus, some petty people are intentionally causing trouble. I have no choice but to return for a while. Shinger is still young. I'm not comfortable leaving her with others, so I've taken her with me. Don't worry, I will take good care of her. About regaining my memory, I'll explain when I return. I've sent a girl named Ling Dan to protect you. She's capable. If you need anything, just instruct Ling Dan. I'll try my best to return quickly. Signed, Guhan." Suddenly, Ling Dan spoke up. "Have you finished reading?" Banha was startled. "Don't appear so suddenly behind me like that. You scared me to death." Hearing this, Ling Dan immediately knelt down. "This servant has overstepped. Please punish me, madam." Banha hurriedly helped Ling Dan up. "Punish what? Quickly stand up." In her heart, she thought, "This ancient habit of kneeling at every turn really gives me a headache." Banha then pulled Ling Dan to sit down and smiled, saying, "If Guhan left you with me, can you tell me about him? Come, let's sit down and talk." Hearing this, Ling Dan knelt down again. The master ordered. Banha helplessly sat down and said, "Talk to me." "Kneel again, and you're out." Just then, Miss Zhou's maid rushed in frantically. "Miss Lin, please help our young miss." Banha immediately stood up and asked what she meant. The maid knelt down and explained, "Today, the authorities returned our miss's body. They said she committed suicide, but I know Miss Lin examined our miss yesterday. Clearly, our miss was framed by villains. I hope Miss Lin can consider the little miss and help us find the real culprit. Don't let our miss die with regret and resentment." Banha asked doubtfully, "How do you know I examined the body last night?" As soon as she finished speaking, a voice rang out. "I told her." The young man from before appeared sheepishly, saying, "Miss Lin, I've troubled you." However, Ling Dan quickly shouted, calling the young man a pervert, and closed the door. Ling Dan then drew a knife and said coldly, daring to peek at Madam in her disheveled state, "We should deal with that man outside." Banha helplessly tried to calm her. All right, calm down." In her heart, she thought, "I'm a modern person, so I don't mind." She then gently pulled Ling Dan back. Next, she instructed the person outside the door, "Perhaps it's better to avoid trouble. In front of him, you could just call me sister." Ling Dan immediately nodded. This servant obeys. A while later, the young man and the maid were invited inside by Banha and seated. The young man apologetically said, "Miss Lin, I'm truly sorry. I was abrupt earlier." Banha replied, "It's fine. Let's discuss the main issue." The young man immediately clasped his hands and said, "I didn't introduce myself before. I'm Bao Duan, an official from the capital. By the emperor's order, I'm secretly inspecting various places. Today, I came to ask Miss Lin to investigate a case for me. Remember the incident with the mountain bandits before?" Banha asked curiously, "You've already captured all the mountain bandits, yet you say it's secret." Bao Duan waved his hand. "I just did it casually. Moreover, my subordinates have been hiding for a long time. The local government doesn't know about this. Banha heard this and asked further, "Oh, so how did you deal with those mountain bandits? Surely you didn't kill even a newborn baby." The young man answered frankly, "How could I? I had investigated them beforehand. They've robbed, but never killed anyone. I told my men to take them to the neighboring county. They'll be judged there as they see fit." Banha sighed in relief, thinking, "After all, it's a child I delivered. I didn't want it to die tragically." She then asked aloud, "I see. So what about this case investigation you mentioned?" Hearing this, the young man couldn't help but slam his hand on the table. "Mentioning this makes me angry. Last night, I took that lady's body to report to the authorities, but the county magistrate wouldn't see me. Early this morning, I asked the Yaman runners and found out the magistrate had already ruled that the young lady hanged herself. I then had people secretly investigate. I fear this matter is related to the newly crowned top scholar and the princess behind him. There are some places where my subordinates and I can't show our faces. So I want to collaborate with you. I want you to gather sufficient evidence to indict Gulangi." The next morning, the maid from before was tiptoeing with another person towards Miss Zhou's room. The maid then opened the door and said, "Quickly, come in. The young Mrs. belongings are all in the room." Banha, disguised as a maid, smiled and nodded. She then entered, examining the room while asking, "Tell me, how did Miss Zhou and that Gulang get to know each other?" The maid immediately recounted what she knew. At the Lantern Festival 5 years ago, after losing her family, the young miss met him. After he brought the young miss home, they gradually started communicating. Banha flipped through a book on the table and asked, "How did they communicate? Did your young miss leave any letters?" The maid replied, "They often wrote letters to each other, but the young miss was afraid her father would find out, so she burned them after reading." The maid was now very sad, with tears in her eyes. "If I had known that man was such a beast, I would have advised her to keep the letters. They could have been evidence now." Banha opened a chest in the room. As she opened it, she thought, strange, Miss Zhou liked that scumbag so much. How could she not keep anything as a memento? However, when she saw the contents inside, she was startled. Banha then quickly picked up a rabbit-shaped lantern from inside and held it up, asking the maid, "Is this also Miss Zhou's?" The maid replied, "Yes." The young miss loved lanterns, so she collected lanterns from the past 2 years and kept them here. Banha heard this and doubtfully examined the lantern closely. This lantern looks so ugly. What did Miss Zhou like about it? And she collected so many of them too. Suddenly, Banha discovered something. She saw a line of writing inside the lantern. The maid heard this and came over to look. Banha pointed and said, "Look, it says, 'Hold your hand through life.' Could this lantern be made by Gulang Yi?" The maid immediately understood and speculated, "It might be." When the young miss brought the lantern home, she said she bought it from a special person. Her face was all flushed and shy. Hearing this, Banha returned to the chest. "If that's the case, we should find all the lanterns he gave her to see if there are any other clues." The maid immediately agreed. A moment later, Banha had found 4 lanterns. Looking at this pile, Banha immediately thought to herself, only these few. Though they have his handwriting, which can be compared, without clear evidence, it's still very troublesome. Suddenly, the maid brought over a lotus-shaped lantern. "Found it. This one must be able to..." However, before she could finish speaking, Mr. Zhou angrily burst in. "What are you doing? Why are you rummaging through my daughter's things? Are you trying to steal?" The maid panicked and said, "No, it's not like that." Banha quickly bowed and said, "Master Zhou, Xiao Yu said that when alive, the young miss loved these lanterns very much, so we wanted to clean them and light them for her. This way, the young miss won't be lonely on her journey." Hearing this, Mr. Zhou softened and said, "It's rare to find such thoughtfulness. Bring them to the morning hall later to light them." After saying this, Mr. Zhou turned and left. Having escaped, the maid happily turned to Banha. Luckily, Miss Lin reacted quickly. However, Banha hurriedly spoke, "There's no time to talk about this now. I'll take these lanterns back to Bao Duan. You find some other maids to light the other lanterns. Don't let others get suspicious." That evening, as Banha was bringing those lanterns back, she was seen by Gulang Yi. He immediately became suspicious. Why do those lanterns that maid is carrying look so familiar? Meanwhile, Banha remained unaware and was struggling, thinking to herself, "These lanterns are really hard to carry. If I had known, I would have sent Ling Dan to examine the crime scene." Du Long Yi was suddenly startled. "Those lanterns, aren't they?" He then hurriedly called someone over. A servant immediately appeared. "Young master, what are your orders?" Gulang Yi smiled sinisterly and said, "I want you to follow that maid carrying lanterns down there. Don't let those lanterns remain." The subordinate immediately understood and left to do so. After a while of struggling, Ban Ha finally returned home. Rubbing her sore shoulders, she thought to herself, finally home. I'm exhausted. We agreed to meet at the inn tonight. It's already dark. Where's Bao Duan? Ban Ha picked up the lotus-shaped lantern. I'll wait a bit longer. Earlier, Xiaoyu was very happy when she took this. Could there be some clue inside? Discovering something inside, Ban Ha was immediately startled. She then smiled happily. Great, we have this. But at this moment, a tube was thrust into the room, blowing out a white smoke. Ban Ha, unaware, immediately inhaled it. Her whole body quickly felt drowsy. Elsewhere, Gu Han was riding fast on horseback, holding Xing'e, when his heart suddenly pounded hard. Strange, why do I have such a bad premonition? Could something have happened to Ban Ha? Back to Ban Ha, she was now unconscious. Her hand still tightly clutched the lotus-shaped lantern. Meanwhile, the entire room was burning fiercely. Seeing Ban Ha like this, Wan Bao worriedly called out for her to wake up. Seeing her eyes flutter, Wan Bao quickly opened the system panel and said, finally, you're conscious. If this continues, before you burn to death, you'll suffocate. Quickly press this. Ban Ha, choking on smoke, coughed a few times. However, she still persistently cared about the lantern. Meanwhile, Wan Bao was extremely anxious and grabbed her hand, pulling it up. This is no time to think about that tattered lantern. Don't worry, I've saved the most important thing for you. If you don't want to die, quickly press reject for me. Wan Bao then guided Ban Ha's hand to the mission rejection button and pressed it. After doing so, Wan Bao sighed in relief. No more problems now. You just need to endure a bit. Then we'll find that bastard and get revenge. Soon, the system's voice sounded. Branch mission rejected. Initiating punishment. Ban Ha's painful screams quickly rang out. Bao Duan and Ling Dan had returned at this time. Seeing the inn on fire, they were both extremely panicked. Meanwhile, in Ban Ha's subconscious, she then heard voices in her ear. It's all your fault. If you hadn't kept dragging things out, sister wouldn't have gotten into trouble. Yes. Who knew you made new martial arts? I thought you were some villain, so I ignored it. If anything happens to sister, you won't leave here alive today. Slowly opening her eyes, the first thing Ban Ha saw was Ling Dan covering her face and crying, blaming herself. I shouldn't have left sister. It's all my fault, boo-hoo-hoo. Bao Duan awkwardly comforted her. Don't cry. Didn't the doctor check and say your sister is fine? Seeing this, Ban Ha gritted her teeth and shouted, so noisy, I could die. The other two were startled when they heard this and looked over. They then joyfully ran to Ban Ha. Ban Ha sat up and asked, where is this place? Bao Duan immediately replied, this is another inn in town. That day after I rescued you from the old inn, we moved here. You've been unconscious for a day and a night. What exactly happened? Why did the inn suddenly catch fire? Hearing this, Ban Ha immediately asked worriedly, wait, where are my sister and brother-in-law? Were they injured when the inn burned down? Ling Dan smiled reassuringly, sister, don't worry. That night, their family of 3 were all out, so luckily they avoided yesterday's disaster. I've had people take them back to the village. When sister goes home, you'll be able to see them. Hearing this, Ban Ha sighed in relief. Seeing this, Bao Duan hurriedly said, now can we talk about what happened before? Hearing this, Ling Dan boiled with anger and turned to shout at the young man, are you sick? Sister just woke up and you're asking this and that. Can't you let sister rest a bit more? Bao Duan was startled by this. What's with that look? Don't you want to know who hurt her? Ling Dan knew Bao Duan had a point, so she pouted, unable to argue. Ban Ha saw her like this and patted her head comfortingly. It's all right, I can handle it. Ban Ha then slowly recounted. That day, someone did intentionally set the fire. Their purpose was probably to burn the lanterns I brought back from the Zhou family. Bao Duan was shocked to learn the reason. Someone wanted to kill for a few lanterns. Ban Ha smiled and confirmed, that's right. You can prepare the indictment now. The next day at the Yamen, Bao Duan had arrived early to beat the drum and appeal for justice. The curious townspeople had gathered in large numbers to watch. A moment later, the magistrate sat on the high bench and loudly asked those in the courtroom who had grievances to air. Bao Duan knelt and stated, Your Honor, this humble one is Bao Duan, sent here on behalf of another to appeal for justice. The magistrate was surprised. Oh, who sent you, and for what matter? Bao Duan immediately said, "I was sent by the recently deceased Miss Zhou to come here and accuse this year's top scholar, Gu Langyi, of murder." As soon as these words were spoken, murmurs of discussion arose from the crowd. Ban Ha was also present, standing among the crowd. However, when the magistrate heard Bao Duan's words, he slammed the table and shouted loudly, "Nonsense! Miss Zhou clearly hanged herself. What does this have to do with the top scholar?" Seeing this, Bao Duan calmly said, "Miss Zhou's body was discovered by me and brought to the yamen. She was clearly poisoned, causing blood to flow from her 7 orifices. Could it be that your honor never saw the body?" Hearing this, the magistrate broke out in sweat and glanced at his subordinate, thinking to himself, didn't this fellow say everything had been taken care of smoothly? How could such an oversight occur? So he then tried to find an excuse to evade. That day when the body was brought here, it was already dark. Perhaps you saw wrongly. However, Bao Duan immediately refuted, "Your honor may not know. The evening I discovered the body, I happened to meet a woman. This woman knew something about autopsies. She told me about the condition of the body. I wish to invite her as a witness to help clear Ms. Zhou's name." As he finished speaking, Ban Ha stepped forward and knelt. "This woman Ban Ha greets your honor. That night, I did indeed examine Miss Zhou's body and confirmed that Miss Zhou was strangled by someone and forced to drink poisoned wine. I hope your honor will investigate clearly." The magistrate quickly stood up and shouted loudly, "How could a woman like you know about autopsies? I think you two are here to falsely accuse others. Someone arrest them for me." Seeing the magistrate's unwillingness to cooperate, Bao Duan couldn't help but stand up and say sternly, as a magistrate, "You ignore evidence and fail to distinguish right from wrong. It seems this top scholar has given you quite a few good things." As he finished speaking, he took out a token and held it up. "I am Imperial Physician Bao Duan. This token is as if seeing His Majesty." Seeing this, the magistrate hurriedly knelt and saluted, "Long live His Majesty. Long live, long live." Bao Duan then coldly asked, "Well then, magistrate, can you now reinvestigate the case of Miss Zhou's murder?" A moment later, the magistrate no longer dared to oppose and quickly opened the court session. He then slammed the table and shouted loudly, "Gu Langyi, do you admit your crime?" Hearing this, Gu Langyi knelt and protested innocently, "I don't know what crime I've committed." Seeing this, the magistrate called for Ban Ha to be brought in. "Lin Ban Ha, tell me everything you know." Ban Ha immediately began to explain, "A few days ago, I had some business on the mountain outside the city. On my way down the mountain home, I met Lord Bao at the foot of the mountain. I have some knowledge about autopsies, so I helped Lord Bao examine Miss Zhou's body. There were clear rope marks on Miss Zhou's neck, indicating strangulation. Moreover, blood flowed from her 7 orifices. It can be deduced that she was strangled first, then forced to drink poison, leading to death. There was blood under her fingernails, but no scratch marks on her neck. It's likely Miss Zhou was strangled and scratched the killer's neck while struggling. The blood under her nails might be from the killer's neck." Hearing this, the magistrate immediately ordered someone remove his clothes. Several yamen runners quickly grabbed Gu Langyi. They pulled down his collar. On his neck, there were indeed scratch marks. The magistrate immediately questioned where these wounds came from. Gu Langyi turned pale with fear and stammered, unable to answer. Just then, Princess Qingdao stepped forward and spoke up to defend him. "These wounds were caused by me. Someone is trying to frame Gu Lang for murder. You don't need to mind me, just tell the truth." Hearing this, Bao Duan turned to Qingdao and asked, "Princess means the wounds on Gu Langyi's neck were caused by you?" Qingdao replied shyly, "That's right. A few days ago, in a moment of passion, accidentally scratched Gu Lang's neck. But this location could easily lead to misunderstandings. Gu Lang was afraid of affecting my reputation, so he didn't want to mention it. With Qingdao's support, Gu Lang, he was no longer afraid and hurriedly said, 'That's right, just as the princess said. I don't know that woman at all. How could I harm her? Your honor, please don't falsely accuse me.' Bao Duan heard this and smirked contemptuously. Whether you're innocent or not, you know best in your heart. In this situation, the magistrate called for the next witness. Bring in Xiao Yu, the maid from the Zhou household. Xiao Yu quickly entered and knelt down. Bao Duan began questioning Xiao Yu. Do you recognize the young man next to you? Xiao Yu immediately replied, this servant knows his name is Gu Langyi. At the Lantern Festival 3 years ago, he became acquainted with our young miss. That year they fell in love. They had originally agreed to But before she could finish, Gu Lang Yi jumped up. Don't you dare spout nonsense. You should know that slandering me is against the law. Hearing this, Xiao Yu immediately became angry and shouted, Gu Lang, not only did you kill my young miss, but you also brazenly lie. Aren't you afraid her ghost will come for you at night? Seeing this, Princess Qing Dao coldly asked, Young lady, you say Gu Lang and your young miss knew each other. Do you have any proof? Gu Lang Yi smirked to himself. Luckily, I persuaded that foolish woman to burn all the letters, and now the lanterns are destroyed too. Let's see what evidence you have to accuse me. Suddenly, Banha opened a cloth bag. Inside was that lotus-shaped lantern. Your Honor, I have a lantern here that Miss Xiao Yu entrusted to me for safekeeping. On this lantern is information about the killer arranging to meet Miss Zhou on the night she was murdered. Just by comparing the handwriting, we can determine whether Gu Lang Yi is responsible or not. Then, hearing this, Gu Lang Yi was visibly shaken. Seeing this, Banha smiled mischievously and said, Young Master Gu, why are you so surprised? Is it because you would rather set a fire to burn all the lanterns, but accidentally left behind the most important one? Gu Lang Yi was sweating profusely, unable to speak. Banha immediately continued, Young Master Gu, do you remember that night when you hurriedly left the scene? You dropped a jade pendant with your name engraved on it. Hearing this, Gu Lang Yi jumped up and shouted, You're lying. That night, I wasn't carrying any jade pendant with my name on it. As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Lang Yi realized he had slipped up. Banha calmly turned to the magistrate. That's how things stand. I hope Your Honor can judge fairly and clear Miss Zhou's name. With everything resolved, Xiao Yu hurriedly spoke up. Thank you, Miss Lin. Thank you for agreeing to help our young miss. Bao Duan couldn't hide his admiration and said, I didn't expect you to trap Gu Lang Yi like that. Thanks to you, this case can be smoothly concluded. Banha replied, puzzled, isn't trapping the culprit a basic lesson in solving cases? Bao Duan scratched his head embarrassedly. I command troops. I don't think about these things. Hearing this, Banha was speechless. Yet you volunteered to take on this case. However, while they were cheerful, Qing Dao looked extremely displeased. She angrily instructed her subordinate, investigate the backgrounds of these 3 people thoroughly. Report back to me within 3 days. Daring to touch my person? Don't think you'll have a good ending. Back at the inn, Banha pondered, resting her chin on her hand. Guhan has been gone for 5 days. I wonder where he's gone after so long. Seeing her deep in thought, Ling Dan obediently stood quietly to the side. Suddenly, Banha turned to Ling Dan and asked, Ling Dan, have you received any news about Guhan? Ling Dan immediately bowed and replied no. Would Madam like me to send a message? Banha calmly said, if possible, please do. I want to know if Guhan and Sheng'er are safe. Hearing this, Ling Dan quickly ran to the street to find someone to send a letter. Bonhoden Said. Seeing this, Wan Bao appeared and asked, what's wrong? Why are you suddenly sighing? Banha poked Wan Bao and said, I'm lamenting, because in the end, I still have to follow the path you've arranged. Wan Bao asked, confused, what do you mean?